Throw rocks. Hey guys.
A co-founder of the social news and entertainment website Reddit has been found dead.
He certainly was a prodigy, although he never kind of thought of himself like that.
Did you?
He was totally unexcited about starting businesses and making money.
Such a good dude.
There's a profound sense of loss tonight in Highland Park, Aaron Swartz's hometown, as loved ones say goodbye to one of the internet's brightest lights.
Open access and computer activists are mourning his loss.
An astonishing intellect. You talk to people who knew him. He was killed by the government, and MIT betrayed all of its basic principles.
They wanted to make an example out of him, okay?
Governments have an insatiable desire to control.
He was potentially facing 35 years in prison and a $1 million fine.
Raising questions of prosecutorial zeal and I would say even misconduct. Have you looked into that particular matter and reached any conclusions?
Nope. Holden is such an asshole.
Growing up, I slowly had this process of realizing that all the things around me that people had told me were just the natural way things were, the way things always would be. They weren't natural at all. They were things that could be changed, and they were things that, more importantly, were wrong and should change. And once I realized that, there was really kind of no going back.
Welcome to story time.
The name of the book is Paddington at the
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
he was born in Highland Park.
Well, that's why I think it's so timely.
He came from a family of 3 brothers, all extraordinarily bright.
How can you get your first job?
All, not the best
Get people
paid
to trust
children,
you.
3 boys running around all the time.
And figure out what it is that you need to do to develop trust with those people. That's how you get a job.
But I've come to the realization, Aaron learned
Everybody
to
establishes trust
at a very
differently.
young age.
Someone tells you to get this certificate, this degree, they don't know what they're talking about. And show your boobs in an interview. Hey, if that establishes trust, there you go.
He knew what he wanted, and he always wanted to do it. He always accomplished what he wanted. His curiosity was endless.
Here's a little picture of what the planet are.
He always, not only did, he always wanted to teach everybody. He didn't just want to learn, he wanted to share everything all the time.
One day he said to Susan, "What's this free family entertainment in downtown Highland Park?"
Free family entertainment downtown Highland Park.
Yeah.
He was 3 at the time.
But
She said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Look, it says here on the refrigerator, free family entertainment in downtown Highland Park." And so she was floored and astonished that he could read.
It's called My Family Seder. The Seder night is different from all other nights.
I remember once we were at the University of Chicago Library. I pulled a book off the shelf that was from like 1900 and showed him and said, this is really just an extraordinary place.
We all were curious children, but Aaron
Yeah.
really liked learning and really liked teaching.
And when they were going to learn the ABCs backwards, D-Y-S-W-V.
If you search for the internet's
I remember
own boy
he came home from his
on
first
YouTube,
algebra
it'll be
class,
the first hit.
And he was like, "Noah,
Aaron
let me
Schwartz.
teach you algebra." And I'm like, "What is algebra?"
Listen to this.
And he was always like that.
Now it's pressed
The most important scene line in the whole story.
there. Now it's got that. Now it's in pink.
Wait, where is it?
When he was about 2 or 3 years old.
That was that line from
he started
Aaron
to
is the
teach
most
us,
important
and
line
it
in the
just
whole
took off
movie,
like
as far as I'm
crazy on
concerned.
Go fast it was.
If you want to understand what made him different than
We all
everybody
had
else.
computers, but Aaron really took to them. Really took to the internet.
Looking at the computer? Mommy, why is nothing working? He's backwards. D-Y-S-W-V. What's the planet Mars? And each planet has a symbol.
He's such an annoying little kid.
Symbol, Earth symbol, Mars symbol, Jupiter symbol.
One day he said to Susan, "What's this free family entertainment?" That he could read.
Please tell me that's not an ad.
Because I always wanted to be an Arctic explorer.
Oh
and
God!
partly
I accidentally clicked off of it. His brother says, who is also really smart, by the way. Listen.
But I've come to the realization Aaron learned how to learn at a very young age.
Aaron learned how to learn at a very young age, and that's what sent him into the stratosphere when it comes to knowledge. Because
He knew what he wanted, and he always wanted to do it. He always accomplished what he wanted.
there's no nice ending, guys.
His curiosity was...
I'm sorry, you can, but we can do something about it.
What's a planet flag? Each planet has a symbol. Mercury symbol, a Venus symbol, Earth symbol, Mars
Yeah.
symbol, Jupiter symbol.
One day he said to Susan, "What's this free family entertainment?"
You already
downtown
seen this
Highland
part,
Park?"
but
Free family entertainment downtown Highland Park.
He was 3 at the time. And she said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Look, it says here on the refrigerator, free family entertainment on downtown Highland Park." And so she was floored and astonished that
not yet.
he could read.
I should probably watch that one.
My family
I watched the whole Cyber War series though.
Dark Seder night is different from all other nights.
I remember once.
We're gonna talk about that,
we were at the
sicko.
University of Chicago Library.
We're gonna talk
I
about
pulled a book off the shelf that was from like 1900 and showed him and said, "You know, this is really just an extraordinary place."
We all were curious children, but Aaron really liked learning and really liked teaching.
We'll talk about Cyber War too, if you want. Cyber War should be an award-winning series.
I remember he came home
From
from
Vice.
his first algebra class, and he was like, "Noah, let me teach you algebra." And I'm like, "What is algebra?"
What is algebra?
And he was always like that.
Now it's pressed
I deal with outliers all the time.
there. Now it's got that.
Don't use Google. Use DuckDuckGo. Search for
When he
Cyber
was
War
about 2
space
or 3
Vice.
years old, and Bob introduced him to computers.
It's
Then he just took off.
a documentary
crazy
series
on them.
from Vice. Nice.
We all had computers, but Aaron really took to them. Really took to the internet.
Working at the computer? Mommy, why is nothing working?
He started programming from a really young age. I remember the first program that I wrote with him was in BASIC, and it was a Star Wars trivia game. He sat down with me in the basement where the computer was for hours programming this game.
Yep.
The problem that I kept
Taught
having
himself.
with him is there was nothing that I wanted done, and to him, there was always something to do.
Yeah.
Something that programming could.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? To him, he was like, I don't know. There's nothing really more that I want. By the way, it's all Python. See this? There's nothing, he says, there's nothing more I really wanted out of the thing. And he's like, no, Aaron was like, oh, no, there's more I got to do. There's more I got to do. So again, all the symptoms, all the attributes of an autodidact.
The way Aaron always saw
It's
it
low, but it's not too
is
low.
that programming is magic, right? You can accomplish these things that normal humans can't.
Aaron made an ATM using like a Macintosh and like a cardboard box.
No, it's not the
One year
anniversary
for
of his death.
Halloween, I didn't know what I
But
wanted
he
to
could
be, and
sure
he
be
thought it'd
used right
really,
now.
really cool if I dressed up like his new favorite computer, which at the time was the original iMac. I mean, he hated dressing up for Halloween, but he loved convincing other people to dress up as things that he wanted to see.
He made this website called The Info, where
Check
people
it.
can just fill in information. Like, I'm sure someone out there knows all about gold leafing. Why don't they write about
Share
that
your
on this
knowledge.
website?
And then other
See
people
that?
could come at a later point and read that information and edit the information if they thought it was bad. Not too dissimilar from Wikipedia, right? And this was before Wikipedia had begun, and this was developed by a 12-year-old.
12-year-old.
in his room.
Made
by
Wikipedia in
himself,
his room by
running
himself.
on, this tiny server using ancient technology.
One of the teachers responds like, "This is a terrible idea. You can't just like let anyone author the dictionary,
We're gonna
author
talk
the
about it.
encyclopedia. The whole reason we have scholars is to write these books for us. How could you ever have such a terrible idea? Me and my other brother would be like, oh, you know, yeah, Wikipedia is cool, but you know, we had that in our house like 5 years ago.
2000 from a
Aaron's
12-year-old.
website, theinfo.org, wins a school competition hosted by the Cambridge-based web design firm Ars Digita.
We all went to,
Hey, good afternoon.
to Cambridge for when he won the Ars Digita Prize, and you know we had no clue what Aaron was doing. It was obvious that the prize was really important.
Aaron soon became involved with online programming communities, then in the process of shaping
We're
a
gonna talk
new
about it.
tool for the web.
He comes up to me, it's like, Ben, there's this really awesome thing that I'm working on. You need to hear about it. I'm like, yeah, what is it? He says, it's this thing called RSS. And he explains to me what RSS is. I'm like, why is that useful?
Your
Aaron?
RSS
Is any site
crashed
using
and burned.
it? Like, why would I want to use it?
It crashed
There
and
was
burned.
this mailing list for people who were working on RSS and XML more generally, and there was a person on it named Aaron
XML
Swartz,
crash
who
and
was
burned.
combative but very smart, and who had lots of good ideas, and he didn't ever come to the.
The problem
face-to-face
is you can't ever
meetings.
trim it.
And they said, you know, when are you going to come out to one of these face-to-face meetings? And he said, you know, I don't think my mom would let me. I'm 14. I just turned 14, and so
He
the
just turned
first
14.
reaction was, well, you know, this colleague we've been working with all year was 13 years old while we were working with him. And
This
he's
is
only
just how
14
I,
now.
on the
And their
stream,
second
this is how I
reaction
feel with
was,
some
"Gosh,
of
we
you.
really want to meet him. You know, that's extraordinary." He was part of the committee that drafted RSS.
What he was doing was to help build the plumbing.
He was
for
part of the committee who
modern
drafted RSS.
The piece that he was working on, RSS, was a tool that you can use to get summaries of things that are going
13
on
years
in other
old?
web pages. Most commonly, you would use this for a blog.
I mean,
You might
meanwhile,
have 10 or 20 people's blogs you want to read.
other people
Use
are
their
dying
RSS
on.
feeds, these summaries of what's going on those other
Yeah,
pages.
it is sad.
To create a unified list of all the stuff that's going on.
Can you imagine what he would make today?
but
I just
he
can't
understood
even
technology
imagine
and
it.
saw that it was imperfect
I want to
and looked for
imagine
ways
it.
to help
I have maybe one idea of what he would build, and I want to build it for him.
So his mom started bundling him on planes in Chicago. We'd pick him up in San Francisco. We'd introduce him to interesting people to argue with, and
All right,
we'd
let's get
marvel at his
started.
horrific eating habits. He only ate white food, only like
Only
steamed
white
rice
food.
and enough.
I only eat white bread. Literally. Oh, isn't that funny? That's kind of funny. It's funny to me. I have some news, and I've talked about this with a few people that I really trust, and I'm just going to go ahead and just drop it out there. We're going to restart the boost. We're losing people because we're going too fast, and so there's a few things that I'm going to talk about. We're still going to do YAML, and don't panic. We're still going to do a little bit of the Pandoc stuff. We'll stick with knowledge as source. But the fact of the matter is that the knowledge as source conversation almost needs to be the first thing that I want to do. And so another thing, this is my stream. I'm going to do what I want. If you guys have invested, that's fantastic. In fact, I talked to one person specifically who, let me put the coding music on. I don't know if I want Alan Watts yet, but so where's the hacker music? Hacker music's a little bit chill, a little bit more chill. Now I'll just do electronic gems. And oh boy, I'm so sorry. Turn the sounds down. Blow your ears out. So let me explain what I'm going to do, and it's going to take me about. It won't take me the full time, but it's going to take a good half an hour. I think you might have sensed that this is coming. I mean, the schedule's kind of waned, and honestly, I'm kind of dreading starting to do JavaScript next week. And it's not because I don't like JavaScript. And you saw, if you see me on Saturday messing with Dino and YAML and everything that we can try to do to get going. So yeah, it's definitely the alpha. And so something you're going to learn about me as long as you finish Pandoc. Yeah, we're going to be finishing Pandoc this week. No problem there for sure. And it's integrated with links and has MUP bindings. Does it really? All right. So a full post RSS feed is a good idea. I will bookmark that, but I'm going to be hard to convince of that argument. I am convincible, You should know that about me by now. If there's enough sufficient information, I will change my opinions. But I doubt it. Seriously doubt it. Given the amount of volume that I would use in an RSS feed, we'll talk about that. That's actually a really interesting knowledge as source comment document, or unless they can parse off. We're gonna go down the RSS path. I don't think we want to do that right now. I will go down there a little bit later with you guys if you want to, and this is one of the reasons that I want to reboost. And the reason for that is because I don't feel like we're getting. So there's three lessons I've learned over the last month. The last month of doing this boost. But apparently your good buddy Luke Smith says switch to Dash Shell because it's faster than Bash. It is. It is definitely faster than Bash. There's no doubt about that. But that's not the comparison. The comparison is how powerful is an interactive shell. Let's see you do regular expression matching in Dash. Can't do it. It's a shallow opinion to say that you should use just Dash or just Bash. In fact, I am staring right now at an iPad, wrong word, that says litany of languages, and it goes down the language, and the first language on the list is Dash. First language. So I agree, you should learn Dash. But you should learn Bash next. And so I think I did Bash a little bit out of order too. I want to learn POSIX first, and then I want to learn Bash. I know it's mirrored. I'm sorry. I keep forgetting. People screamed at me because it wasn't mirrored, and I was looking up at you, and you guys could think I was looking over here anyway. So, without getting too distracted, I'm going to break this down really quickly. So, overall, the people who are here, most of them want to learn Linux terminal skills. That is it. They want to learn how to script. They want to learn how to code. But generally speaking, they don't want it. So far, they don't want a deep dive into any particular coding language. And what I have on the calendar right now is, some very, very deep dives into C using, the book isn't even that deep, but it's enough. It's like 3 weeks worth of learning and Go and all that. It's just overwhelming and confusing. It really is. I'm definitely keen to touch on C. Well, I touch on is the key word. Okay. So, my wife and I were talking about this last night. God bless her. Bless her heart. That's kind of an inside joke if she's watching. But, and I was running this idea by her because I was like, I'm like pulling the rug out from under these people. And I'm like, no, but it's for the better. And something you need to know about me and SkillStack is this is the company I formed. When something's not working, I change it immediately. I don't wait around till the end of the semester or to get reaccreditation approval. I change it immediately. And if you ask me, that's what more scientists and more educational institutions should do. They should really, really think about the changes, and they should adapt and change. And if they wait for the next 3 months to decide to change, and they're going down the wrong path. I actually changed a language in the middle of the course when I had a bunch of pros that had been with me for 3 or 4 years. I taught them Java, because the AP computer science test is in Java. We got to learn Java. And in the middle of it, they don't really learn Go. In the middle of it, they revolted and said, this is the most horrible language in the world. Teach us anything else. Teach us Go, please. And we will do the Java as necessary to pass the test. And they did. So I have no problem changing when there's a need. And I believe that's in the best interest of people here. Now, to be fair, I've had people from the academic world. One mother in particular, she just lost her shit when I changed what we were learning in the middle. And it was so funny. She's like, you can't do that. I just did. It was so funny. She taught at the college downtown. She said, you can't just change the curriculum in the middle of a course. I said, I just did. She said, but what about all the people who signed up for the course? They all agreed. Like, but you have to get no, I don't. It's the greatest thing. It's the greatest thing to give yourself permission to change. And when people project skills change, and it really does. This can be something as simple as reading a book. You start reading a book, right? I am going rogue. But I don't want anybody to worry. And I want to share a story with you about somebody who I talked to about this. I won't say who. And I asked them about it. I said, well, what do you think about this? And they go, actually, to tell you the truth, I haven't been able to keep up for the last week and a half. And but what I did do is I because there's so much content, blah, blah. So, but what I did do is I took all your spiel and everything about being an autodidact to heart in like the first 2 weeks. I examined all the books in preparation for this boost, and I cannot stop working through this C book. I am obsessed with this C book, and frankly, I've been feeling bad because I've been like doing all of the C coding and not following along on the boost. So I just didn't know how to tell you about that, but that's what I've been doing. And I was like, so that's the reality. So the main goal of the boost, and this is what my mom, there's a Freudian slip. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what C book it is later. It's actually Head for C. That's the book we were planning on working through, which we're not going to now. But it's definitely there, yeah. So my wife is telling me, we're going to do JSON and YAML right now, but just give me a second. Okay, so my wife and I are talking, and I said to my wife, I said, it feels like, the whole boost, metaphor, like I'm that dad who's getting, my son's able to ride bicycles, right? Well, are you that dad who just like is kind of bored? Not bored, but is kind of like, so interested in getting on with the next thing that you like push them down on the bike too fast and they like go screaming off and you're saying, okay, dudes, steer well. And then they crash into the back of a car or anything. That actually happened to me. It wasn't because my dad pushed me too hard. It was just because that's how I started learning a bike. The first thing I did, I ran right in the back of a car. Anyway, or do you want to mention that no clobber just saved me now that I'm organizing my notes? Nice. So I'm glad we mentioned that. So that's actually part of the point. If I give you like a hyper speed, light speed boost, and you don't know how to steer that bike, you're gonna die. and that's kind of what we've been doing. We've been going at light speed and saying, look, just read it. You're expected to read 8 hours a day. If you're not interested in focusing that much, you shouldn't be here. I haven't been saying that, but I think that's kind of been what's coming across. And that's not what I want. What I want to do is help you where you are. And so there's two ways that I think there's another reality that's come out of this. People are not doing a lot of extra reading outside of class. So the original idea, and it's really big, prominent letters on the boost page, which I'm going to rip off, is that I was going to do a flipped course. Now, a flipped course means that you do a lot of experimentation and you bring your questions to class. Almost no one has done that. And by the way, they never do. I don't know. I'm actually questioning the premise of a flipped course in general now, because I've actually talked with other educators like Bob, and it's really hard to get a flipped course to work because you have to have 100% buy-in and you have to have 100% commitment from everybody. In any single technology. And that's what we're going to talk about. In fact, I'm actually staring at 30 different languages that everybody at least needs to have some exposure to. And so we're going to come back to that. And so the main point I'm trying to make here is that rather than like hitting the high points of something and saying, you really should be reading about this, I want to start making videos that are, that have longevity, that they're sustainable. For example, when we started doing the Nyan or the Greet, that is a video that teaches a bunch of concepts about programming in general, as well as Bash, and that's sustainable. That can kind of be transferred. So, but that's not the kind of thing I would have ever started to do. In originally what I've done, I would have had all those things done. I would have said, now go do those things and come back and we're going to talk about them. So the new version of whatever we come up with here is going to be hand-holding time. So it's going to be hand-holding time. It's not going to be, and I'm gonna say something that might sound offensive to some of you, and I don't mean it to, but almost everybody I work with, I would say 85% of the people I've worked with over the last 7-8 years, including everybody on the stream right now, as far as, well, not everybody, I would say about the same, about 85%, just anecdotally, they don't do anything unless they have somebody there to help them feel safe. It's like teaching somebody to swim by throwing him into the deep end of the pool. Oh, you're not swimming very well there, dude. Now you need to get your better form talking to him from the sidelines, right? So, and that's fine. So, you don't want to stay in the shallow end of the pool the whole time, but you also don't want to throw him into the deep end. And it's actually kind of an art form to do this I've got no trouble reading. I'm again trying to juggle through tools and workflow. That's when your live stream comes straight. Well, thank you for that. But so this is where there's two. I really think there's two main things that I can provide, or that any streamer can provide, and I think the biggest one, and I think this goes for most educators, is motivation. Giving you a reason to do it, and that video that I was showing you just now is my reason. In fact, they usually have what lectures to watch at home. They do, and I in my case, the flip meant not watching lectures at home. It meant that you would be reading at home, and so I'm putting an overemphasis about the reading. You're halfway through the Linux books. Okay, it is really written well, isn't it? So in my world of flipped, yes, it's true that flipped generally includes watch at home videos, which I don't have. But in my version of flipped, you read at home, you apply the stuff from the reading, and then you come back. But what's happening is the projects are not, and we might be able to try flipped again in the future, but right now I don't think we're ready for it. I think you guys need a little bit more, mostly because the books are incomplete. The books remain like really, including Shot's book. I love it. I love his book, but it's really incomplete. Who wants to make a bash script that prints HTML? Who wants that? Nobody wants that. So what I plan on providing is motivation and a number of walkthroughs with different projects and that are related to languages. And what I'm thinking the name of, and this is very much a community thing, so I love your feedback. Awk from the Awk manual, because I was doing a project that Awk simplified. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. And I want to show you how Perl even simplifies that better than Awk. And so actually this morning I was thinking about all the languages that we need to learn. And I don't think we should understate how many languages there are until they want to generate. Yeah, nobody wants to do anything until they want to do it, right? And I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I'm writing this new document called the Litany of Languages. And what it does is it lists out all languages, including the ones that I might personally not like, but are really great for a particular purpose. And it lists all the languages out with their specific reason for being picked up. And I'm just kind of talking, kind of out loud at my analysis of how we're going to do this. Let me just read the list to you really quick, because I want you to understand how difficult it's going to be to fit all this in. Now, let's assume for a second that you learn one language a day. All right. So let's say you spend 3 hours with me on the Boost, and you maybe can sneak out another hour to be exposed to a language for the first time. And frankly, that's what the Boost has always been about. It's been, and so Skill Stack has always been about, is it's not about much about going really deep into a thing as much as it is about giving people exposure to things and teaching them about the priority and the skills of becoming an autodidact, and then saying, here's all the things, go find your thing. And that has always been how I operate. So I want to read this list of all the languages that I feel are really seriously significant today. I mean, and this is particularly in the realm of a Linux terminal. And so right now, as of this moment, if this goes down, about Reboost, never heard about Reboost. Reboost is my word. Okay. So just jump around to get exposure in a lot of technology because I like it. Me too. So, and it's actually important that you do that. It's important that you get exposure to a lot of different things that say, I didn't even know that existed, right? How many people didn't even know Dino existed before the Boost? And yet it's one of the most significant things that's coming out, right? So, getting exposed to a lot of things and then going into a few things very deeply. So one of the things that I feel really bad about, and this is why I'm having this, we had to cut Bash off last week because we ran out of time. And we didn't cover arrays. We didn't cover associative arrays. We didn't cover references. We didn't cover backgrounding processes and coproc. There was like so many significant things in Bash that got cut that it's just like making me nuts. Because if I think Bash is one of the things that you need to actually go deep on, that I want to go deep on Bash. And I actually want to rebrand the Boost as a Linux mastery Boost, Linux Terminal Master Boost, which is also the book I started writing. So what this is becoming is it's becoming not just a general technology beginner boost, but it's becoming a terminal master boost, a Linux terminal master boost. And that means learning, which suits it better, yeah. A Linux terminal master boost. And I talked to somebody else yesterday, and they said, well, everybody's really here to learn a Linux terminal. They want to really get into it. There's another thing I haven't been able to get into. We didn't get into tmux very deeply. We showed you how to use it. I showed you the config file. Didn't go through the config file really. Didn't show you how to use the tmux language to configure your things. We didn't talk about IRC. We didn't talk about WeChat. We haven't even really talked about links. I mean, we made a tool for it and everything, but we haven't talked about the real, how do you make all these things work together to become a true terminal master? I mean, a terminal master. Well, you're lucky if you're new here, because I'm about to restart. So you're like on day 2, if not day 1. So stay here, stay tuned. Now, this means that I am going to have to I'm still coming here every day, and we're going to learn something every time. So this is the only segment that I'm going to take where I do a little bit of planning with all of you, because I know you're here. Outside of this, I'm going to be doing a lot of planning and regrouping. A lot of this came about because I was actually organizing the data. So I just want to make a plug on knowledge organization. As I was going about reorganizing my map of the data, and this is again part of the README. Hey, thanks for the cheer. So as you go through, as you start to capture your knowledge and write it, you're going to start to want to organize it. And the reason you might want to start just looking at the different organizations, you might actually come to a realization like I have come to. It's like, this is a lot of stuff. It's like, and that's what this list is. And I'm still going to read it to you. But we have all the articles that I've been reading. We have courses we have to go to. We have definitions and concepts. It's like lots and lots of those. We have, things that people should know for better or worse. How walkthroughs that explain how to do things. And I actually had somebody else just personally contact me and say, I love your MMPs, your mnemonic mini projects. That is the single best thing you've done on the Boost so far. Keep doing that, because it gives me something to refer to that I can learn fast. And if I need to riff off of that or go do a search, I know what words to look for. And so the MMPs, which is something that came out of my 7 years of teaching people in private, or in courses and everywhere, are these mini projects, the 9 cats, the greets, the silly things that we do together to help you learn it. So based on that, my current plan is to try as much. I don't know if it's going to fit within a month. I want it to. This is more for boosting the beginners into intermediates than boosting randoms into beginners, because theirs are valuable skills. Yes. So that is what we're talking about. Okay, so I think I've talked enough about the justification for the decision. I don't want anybody to panic today. We will cover Json and YAML, don't worry. But I just want to run a couple of the organizational things by you. So let me just read off all of the languages, honestly, that are just terminal related languages. So even if we said Linux terminal master, well, to be a Linux terminal master, and one of the main projects that people do to practice their terminal skills is run a Minecraft server. If you can't run a Minecraft server, if you don't know how to run Java, you can't run Java unless you know how to install your Java software on Linux. So there is a pretty fair amount of Linux knowledge that gets pulled in along with terminal mastery. But it's not, strictly speaking, a Linux essentials sort of boost, even though essentials will be covered in that. What I'm trying to say is that this is not going to make you pass LPIC 1, or if you do the stupid CompTIA Linux Plus, it's not going to get you there. For that, you're going to have to take it further. But it is going to give you that broad boost that you want. And hopefully, so 2 primary reasons: boost you and give you exposure, and actually a third, make you freaking awesome on the terminal. Make you blow away your peers in how fast you can get things done on any terminal, not just your personally customized terminal. I'm talking any terminal, any Linux terminal in the world. And that is my primary goal technically for you. And that means being productive in certain languages. It means having really deep how to set path. Yep. But it also means really deeply understanding how to write shell scripts. Above all, something I need to punch for at least 2 days is how to integrate your shell into your Vim edit sessions. And this is something you can do on any system, anywhere, anytime. But you need to be able to do that. So here's the litany of languages that I just thought of this morning. POSIX dash, teletype master ace, POSIX dash until you outgrow it. And somebody mentioned today that Luke mentioned, another YouTuber I've never met, mentioned that dash, you should throw away bash and use dash only. I think that's overstating it. I think you should use dash, which I agree with, is the fastest possible shell until you outgrow it. And some of the easy ways to outgrow it, CompTIA isn't stupid. Yeah, we'll debate that another day. Yeah, multiple guest tests to test your skills. Yeah, I'm going to trust that. Meanwhile, CompTIA pushes for everybody to have to pay them to certify to be able to repair their own electronics. Look likes to speak in hyperbole. You know what? So do I, but not to increase my click rate. It said to use it as bin sh instead of bash, which is exactly what I do and recommend. And it's in my README file. You can go read. I do exactly the same thing. So it's overstatement to say you should not use bash. That is far, far overstating it. That's like saying you shouldn't use C. Okay, you use the right tool for the job, and as soon as dash or bin sh, which by the way is bash on Arch, you use the right tool for the job. Okay, so the end. So let me go through the litany of languages. So you should use. Would you be amazed how many people I encounter who say don't use C? Yeah, well, C has got a specific purpose, and that's kind of what I'm reading here. That technologist, POSIX dash until you outgrow it. And I really believe in that. I do bin sh at the beginning of all my scripts. I completely agree with Luke on that point. Until you outgrow it. First time you need a regular expression or parameter expansion, rather than reaching for awk, use bash, which is also on the system much more powerful and doesn't have a subprocess. Okay, so bash whenever possible, and that's the one I really think you should master because it is the default. It is the default shell on literally millions, if not billions, of systems. Use PHP. I don't have PHP on here. Again, these are terminal languages. Python for complex automation. So I want to cover Python for complex automation. Okay, imagine one day on each one of these languages. One specific mnemonic mini project that gives you exposure to these languages after you've gone very deeply into bash. Okay, use external programs for that. Yeah, I completely agree with that in some sense. But if he's telling him to use awk and set and tr and cut, no way, man. Okay, boomer. That's like really stupid advice today. It's like seriously stupid advice today. In fact, one of the reasons that I want to so proactively teach how to be a true modern terminal. That's like saying don't use RGB color on the terminal today. It's stupid. It's stupid advice. Look, if you're operating on an awk machine, like an old, a machine that requires awk. And by the way, you should be using Perl for all that stuff anyway, but you don't know Perl because you think you're too scared of it and everybody tells you it's really horrible. All right, we're going to keep going here. So POSIX dash when you outgrow it, bash whenever possible, Python for complex automation and integration with the operating system, which Python is all over in Linux. It's in the desktop and everything. And for machine learning, if you need to do that on the command line. Go for concurrency, terminal UIs. So CPIC, you guys saw CPIC, right? CPIC. Go is hands down the leader for terminal UI applications right now. It is destroying everything else for that particular thing. It's also the best at concurrency. It has the best. It's the best for doing parsing. So if you want to write your own domain-specific language, it's really great for that. Cross-platform, and it's really big. So Rust for raw performance. So if you want to rewrite ls or ps, rewrite it in Rust and contribute it. If you Dino for safe JavaScript is a 100% sandbox JavaScript environment. If you need safe JavaScript, Node when necessary. If you have to run Node because you want to use browser sync and you want to be able to preview your web pages, while you're developing from the command line, then you need something. You need to install Node, but you shouldn't be operating from Node all the time. Perl for regex. Perl is hands down the leading tool for regex. Every other language includes the actual Perl library for regular expressions. So if you're doing regular expressions, you need to learn Perl. And I am sick and fucking tired of people slamming Perl for saying that it's read whatever, write once, read never, because they don't understand regular expressions. That's not Perl's fault. That's their fault. And they don't understand what a regular expression is, so they love to bag on it. Next, sed awk tr and cut when nothing else is available. So if all you have is POSIX, then yeah, you need to learn those things. Not deeply, but you need to learn them. 90% of the time, there'll be a Perl on there that you don't need any of that for if you have it. Reading Ruby. You've got to know how to read Ruby. Okay? You really do. You really have to know how to read Ruby. You've got to be able to understand C. I'm not saying that you need to write C every day. We're going to do Perl regex, yeah. So this is one of the reasons I'm switching, because Perl regex wasn't on here, and now I need to put it on there. So one of the reasons I'm having this moment, yeah, is because of that. So running Java, comprehending Java, we might not need to write Java, but you need to be able to run it on a system, and you need to be able to comprehend it and read it, particularly if you're going into any pen testing or anything like that. But we're just talking about being a terminal person. You need to know lightweight Lua, and that's because Lua is the mod language for everything, including Pandoc. I think I'm going to loot. So Markdown. So we've covered Markdown yesterday somewhat, but we need to learn basic, common, and Pandoc. And I need to be able to go deep with you on Pandoc so you can learn how to do tables, you can learn how to do references and bibliographies and all that other stuff you were asking about. And if you guys saw the Aaron Schwartz sort of video at the beginning here, I want to apply all of this stuff. I want to help, if anything, I want to help promote more people to become Aaron Schwartzes. That's what I want to make with my life. I want you to become, we talked about MD versus ADOC yesterday. Markdown is hands down the language of knowledge source. It's overwhelmingly the leader at this point. And HTML for Pandoc templates, of course. Simple styles with CSS. We're not talking about becoming a web developer. We're talking about being able to write Pandoc templates because you have basic HTML structure down and you can do CSS for styles. In fact, we don't even need to learn JavaScript frameworks of any kind. We're talking about terminal applications and things like that. And use of JavaScript for minimal things, using the DOM. Oh my God, how dare you suggest you should use JavaScript as it was originally intended. And C# for C# model for more. You do need to know C# in case you get run into it. R for stats, Julia for science. You need to know how to hack Haskell a little bit. You got to be able to analyze assembly. You don't have to get deep into it. You should understand Erlang, and that's one of the ones I want to learn. To understand why it's the world's best concurrency thing and why Discord went off saying how awesome it is versus Go because they just discovered it and it's like, oh, hey, this is a great language. I don't want you to do that. I want you to know about the language first, if that means taking a day to learn it. Vim script for syntax plugins. JSON for universal data structures, YAML for human structured data, GraphQL to pull data, and SQL for database queries. That is 30 languages. Not counting, there's no C++ on here. I mean, there's no Fortran, there's no COBOL, there's no, there's other languages on here that are not included. These are just the languages off the top of my head that I thought I have had to use. TOML is on there. TOML XML is they're all understructured. So if you put those languages on the list, that's 31, 32 languages that you are likely to use from the command line and as a terminal master. And none of them, any one of them would take a month or two to learn. Live code, yeah, there's probably somebody's favorite language has probably not been talked about yet. Interpreted language. So I didn't want to limit myself to interpreted languages because there's a fundamental need to learn a compiled language as well as a terminal master. If you've done any setuid programming, which is a pen tester kind of thing, or that you cannot do setuid on a script. There are ways around that. Vera liked to talk to me about how Perl has Perl setuid. So there's lots of other languages. There's Nim, and there's Flex. There's for God's sake, there's like Brain F. There's lots of languages, but as I've been kind of trying to get my head around all of these languages that we need to cover, even if we just looked at, yeah, right. Even if we looked at every single one of these languages for one day, for 3 hours a day, that is 30 days just to look at those languages for one. UML. Yeah, we actually should do UML. I'm glad that's not a terminal language, but it is a communications language, and I believe strongly that we should learn all of the communications language. Make is a good one. Make is a language, but do we cover it? Yeah. So this is the hard thing. All right. Here's my new primary goals. My primary goal is for you to become so good at doing autodidactic things, which means reading, writing, and executing, having the Linux as a tool for becoming an Aaron Swartz-like autodidact. And the number one goal is to help you launch. That means giving you the tools to do your searching, giving you all the core tools. And the core tools for me are Bash, Vim, Tmux, Lynx, Pandoc, and SSH. Those are the core terminal tools, the major important terminal tools that everybody should learn. And I need to do full deep dives on those things, and it's probably going to take 2 days each. So if I do Lynx is a day, Pandoc is 2 days, maybe 3. Vim is at least 2 days. Tmux is 2 days, how to use it and how to configure it. SSH is a day. So that's like a full week. And curl is on there. Thank you for that. I forgot about curl. Yeah, curl is a big one. Curl is like really essential. JQ is another one. These are all, by the way, these are all under the tools category on rwx.gg. JQ is it's essentially a language all by itself. In fact, a lot of these, so for example, Tmux is actually a language. It is so complicated, that it's a language. This Tmux app, 1,000%. We'll talk about why you never should use a tiling window manager at all. Tiling window managers might be an extra add-on, but becoming dependent on them is a serious handicap later. And everybody on the streams in Science and Tech disagrees with me, but the people that I know agree with me. If you got to see them, which you never will because they'll never stream, they're not the kind of. This is the thing. I come from a sort of mentor apprentice background where I was taught by other graybeards, and it's just ironic that I have a graybeard now when I'm doing all this. The people who taught me these skills didn't teach them because they were going to be streamer or they were going to do this or that or that. It was all tribal knowledge that's been handed down. And the problem is, William Schatz is one of the last who's actually been handing down terminal tribal knowledge. There's not a lot of people. There's a lot of sensationalists out there pushing their YouTube videos or pushing this or that. There's not a lot of people who actually have the skill, who use it every day and have for years, who are streaming. And so if there's one thing that I can do, hopefully without pissing people off, I want to bring that knowledge to light. I want to put more light onto that way of doing work because these people do not stream that much. The closest thing I've seen to it is Last Miles. And if you can put up with his F words, watch Last Miles. Okay? So, seriously. So, because he has, you should at least see some of his opinions on things. He doesn't think you should even use Vim. He's coding C all the time. Now you got to be careful because a lot of these people, including Last Miles, unfortunately, I love him to death, but including him, including Last Miles, a lot of people like him have not moved into using an RGB terminal. To him is like heresy. F-words are unprofessional. Yeah, well, I know. I occasionally use them. I'm sorry. But my point is that there's something to be learned, and it's not just legacy knowledge from the old people. There's like a combination of new knowledge and old knowledge, and the true autodidacts are constantly absorbing new knowledge out there. They're always getting the new stuff, and they're not throwing out the old stuff. They're adjusting it and going forward. within Vim and calling that Vim. Everybody using COC within Vim and calling it Vim. Yeah, you don't want to read my paper I just wrote on my article I just wrote on NVim. NVim, nobody should ever look at NVim. It's a disaster based on a totally false premise, and it's going to be damaging to your Vim knowledge if you pick it up. And I can't suggest enough that you don't use it, but I want to be able to test that later. Why flocks are not screen? Why tmux, you mean? Well, tmux has just got a little bit more power these days. I do actually believe in screen very much. And that's why my tmux is a very screen-centric configuration. And that is not a popular opinion. And we talked about that. All of these things need their own day. So I'm going to, in about 10 minutes, I'm going to wrap it up. And I'm going to take a break for 10 minutes. And so at 12:10, I'll come back. When I come back, we'll be talking about structured data. We're going to go through JSON, what it means, what the data types are. Then we're going to do, after we do that, we're going to do, I use Alacrity, by the way. And then after that, we're going to do YAML. And we're going to get into the weeds with YAML as much as we can. And that includes mappings and linking. There's a lot of things about YAML that people don't know that are powerful. They're very, very powerful. And they're also sort of triggering to people who come from the JavaScript world, because they're so used to these easily parsable data and stuff. They don't appreciate the complexity of YAML. You know who does? All the people who make containers, people who do stuff like that. Anybody who is maintaining data as a human being who doesn't have a database and doesn't want the bloat of a database should seriously consider YAML. YAML configuration files on my data science project. Yes, and we're going to talk about that. So a lot of people don't like YAML, but they don't know YAML, tell you the truth. Almost all of them. I maintain containers. I still hate YAML. Well, doesn't matter if you maintain it. Your opinion about it is not improved by the fact that you use it to maintain containers. YAML is an awesome way to not use a database. And when you do actually need a database later, you can go for it. Yeah, the white space, I won't lie. The white space is because YAML was made during the time when CoffeeScript was a thing. Remember that? And, Python was a thing. It does have white space. But this is actually one case where I really strongly agree that white space is a good thing. Because it's not a programming language. It's a data language. And it allows you to make stuff very beautiful. Which we're going to talk about. So let me just wrap up here. So what I'm saying is that, well, that's the thing. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to use a use case that I actually have that I went through where I had to make a decision about whether to deploy as a Mongo or a Postgres database, both of which I actually did completely. And in the third iteration of my business management application, I decided to just use simple YAML files. Best decision I ever made. And we'll talk about why that is. YAML is a fantastic structured data language for human maintained data, and that's what I'm talking about. We'll talk about that. NoSQL versus SQL, those are questions we have to talk about as well. So the takeaway of this is, as far as I'm concerned, the previous boost has ended, and I'm going to be the site has already been reorganized. I've already started writing the new schedule. In fact, if you want to see it, I haven't quite committed it yet. But I think it's single thread access. Yeah. I would never use YAML for web apps, but it's good. It's just, we talk about data evolution, which is a whole data segment that I usually do. Data starts out in structured data. We will talk about that as soon as I get back. But then this maximum incarnation is full blown DB2 database. So for us who started, I just finished the Linux book and waited for you to reboot. If you guys have already started, so yeah, let's talk about that. If you've already started, well, what now? Are we going to do all of the other stuff on the boost? The answer, I'm going to tell you very directly what stuff is going to stay and what stuff is going to go. Okay, so we'll go back to the schedule. Oops, I'm looking at the new one, the one I've been working on. So I have to retool all of this. So we're We're going to cover all of this. We're going to cover basically. It's really funny too because I've found that we've been repeating stuff. You guys who watched the videos on the first week, we already covered JSON. We already covered Markdown a little bit. We already covered YAML. I'm already repeating myself. So because I tried to get you guys into it kind of quickly, we don't need 3 weeks of JavaScript. We don't need 2 full weeks of web. We don't need 3 weeks of C. We don't need 3 weeks to go. So what I'm hoping to do is extend this week 4 so that and cram it into. I'm starting to realize that we are not going to be able to cram the whole thing into 1 month. I wish we could. That's the part I'm the most conflicted on, actually. I don't know. Can I ask you guys a question, like straight up? So, there are actually 2 things that I think need to be done, and I want to interweave the 2, but I don't want to do it and learn as many languages as possible. That's exactly what I was going to get for. Okay. I really want to be able to iterate on the terminal master stuff, tmux, vim, bash, those things once a month. I want to be able to finish all of that material in 1 month and restart it and restart it and restart it, because that is the most, I don't know. The most, okay, so the reason that I have a problem with the time frame is because, as you've seen already today, I continue to get new people. And it's a problem. It's more of a problem than I anticipated it would be. I get new people, and the answers to them is like, go back and watch the last 2 months of videos that are all 3 hours each. That's not a solution. So I want to be able to iterate the most important content that I have, which I think is not covered anywhere else. And if it's covered other places, it's covered wrong. Org mode, no, not org mode. No way. Don't use it. I tried it, don't like it, and this is because the reason I don't like it is not because it's Emacs or anything like that. It's because it's not sustainable. Knowledge needs to be captured in ways that can be shared, that can be captured and used by writers and shared everywhere. This is why the world has already decided that Pandoc is that standard, and that just needs to be shouted from the housetops. Which is why I want to continue going through the autodidactic sort of Linux terminal master once. How about you have a small core of knowledge? And that's what I'm talking about. The core of knowledge is like once a month. So once a month we redo. I try to not cram, but we go deeply into Bash. We go deep. Basically, we do deeply into getting Linux on your system without getting into a history of Linux. We go deeply into using Vim and Linux and tmux and Pandoc and SSH and curl and JQ. That is what we go deep on. The stuff that I use every day. That's the stuff that we go deep on once a month. Now, here's the real question for you. I tried this and I felt like it failed, but I'm going to throw it out there again. I used to split the week up. So Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I would have beginner day. And Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would have advanced day, and we would do hacking. What I would like to suggest is that it is kind of interesting that the number of language we have is almost exactly 30 languages. Almost exactly. So what I'm suggesting, yep, that's what I'm going with. What I'm suggesting is that we do Linux Terminal Master Boost Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or something like that. And that we do the language, we do I don't even want to call it language survey. I'll call it litany of languages. I don't think videos are very efficient for learning. A book would be better. Well, I've been writing essentially books that can be printed in PDF for free. And that's the other problem, is that the books that I've been suggesting are, you have to, break the law to get them. And that's been a problem. So I've been having to rewrite, and the Linux from scratch needs to be written. So I'm already starting to rewrite that one. So yeah. So you don't have to learn from the videos. You will have a book and, a video, both. And that's a big goal of mine. 2 languages a day will give us time, but some languages are vast though. Yeah, books are good, but seeing a video of someone doing what you're trying to do is also valuable. Yeah, so it has to be both. I really believe it has to be both. And I think maintaining RWXGG, as I have been doing, which is what I do all the time when I'm not talking to you guys, So yeah, I'm fine with whatever. The only real issue is the back and forth with the peanut gallery. The issue right now is because this is a peanut gallery time, okay? And so I want the back and forth. If you go back and look at my beginner boosts at the beginning, I didn't even look at the chat hardly. I just did it. And then I would go come up for air and ask questions. And I've kind of been back and forthing more than I did at the beginning, I'll admit, because this whole issue has been really weighing heavily on me for the last week. Yes, videos with the right metaphors, and I'm glad you said that, because the mini projects that we do will have a metaphor in it to quickly see, and that will be the tiling thing, and it can be saved permanently instead of just on a boost. So the real question is, I don't think it would be fair to try to fit a language into 45 minutes. I think we need to have, if I'm going to truly hit most of these languages, some of the languages are included in the beginner boost, but the other ones have to be covered. And I don't know that we're going to be able to get through. So this is my goal, is that there would be one project for every language, and it would be completed in 3 hours. Oh wow, nice. Many of us are new. Instead of slamming something, show us the right way, so because we don't know. Yes, absolutely. And I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to do that rather than just so anyway. So how does that sound? Is everybody going to be okay? Is everybody going to be okay if we do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday? Or is it better to do Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then make Friday some kind of free for all fun stuff? Would that be better? And then I'm going to ask this. I'm going to take my break. We'll come back and do YAML and JSON. I'm being very selfish here because I want to really hone in on this. The more I can get your feedback, the more I can save us all time. Okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then Thursday, Friday. Okay. I like the idea of casual Friday. I do too. You know what? We end up doing casual Friday anyway. Why don't we just accept that? Try it and we can provide feedback. You cover 2 million languages to fill it all in within 1 month. We're not going to cover those languages. I'm not trying to suggest. I hope Friday Fun Day. I agree. I think Learning Float doing block days. Yeah, casual Friday is fine. I'm just thinking not every other day. I think you're right too. How about this? How about we try? Yes. So how about we try Monday and Tuesday for beginner boost? For Linux terminal boost. This is the core stuff, and then Wednesday and Thursday we do one language per day. Yeah, I know. Wednesday, I'm not talking about today. This week is kind of like, we'll see. I'm not expecting to learn everything first time. Yeah, and I wanted people to understand that. So the language days are not designed to take the language deep. In fact, we're gonna do a project together. You're gonna write it out. We're gonna talk about how this language relates to the first language you learned, which is probably Bash, but you may have learned another language. And we're gonna do Python, and then one day we're gonna do Go, and then one day we're gonna do Rust. It's just an introduction to the language. It's a conversation on the live stream about why this language is important and what it is used for. Like that Monday, Tuesday, Linux, Wednesday, Thursday, Lang. Yep. Then Friday, free for all. Yeah, and Friday free for all. We'll have to put at least some structure around that. But yeah, best use case. Friday free for all will probably be playing a game of some kind. Any kind of game, a lab game that I've created over the wire, something like that. Friday will be fun time. Let's say, is one day for language time enough? No, absolutely not. But it's enough for you to get a sense of a language. Hey, Scream. So the best use case for language and demonstrative. That's what I'm talking about. So the 1 day committed to these languages is just going to be Games, debates, rants. Yeah, if I can bottle up all my rants until Friday, then I can stay focused and make you nice, happy streams on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, Thursday. And we can actually rant and have fun and do hacks and stuff like that. Might even have a debate. So I'm really seriously, I'm going to try to stick all but the languages, the core languages for the terminal boost, Linux master boost, will be one. That means Python's going to get 1 day. That means, and then by the way, part of this thing I want to do on the language day is I want to prepare a curated list of resources about where I think you can best learn that language and other streamers you should follow for that language. God knows there are much better streamers. I mean, like Last Miles, is watching him do C. He doesn't teach C, but he's a fantastic C programmer. My point is, there are other people, networking, for example. Go watch Bob, go watch El Ramingo. So part of the boost idea is for me to get you contact with the other specialists out there. So if that is your thing, you can go chase that thing down. But if you don't know it exists, you can't even sample it to know it's a thing. And so this has been one of my core missions since 2013, is giving people exposure to all of the different things so that then they can identify things and then really go deep in those one things if they want to. That one day, learning if loops every day might be boring. This is another thing. We're not going to do the same thing. We're going to have a project that is in the sweet spot of the language. So for example, the project for Python will be automation over SSH. That will be the project. Okay. The project for Go will be a terminal UI application that has concurrency. The project for Rust is something that's, probably just a utility, because I don't want to scare people with Rust too much. That kind of thing. We're going to learn. It's really important that the project, I believe, have relevance. Now, the mnemonic mini projects that we're going to do in Bash, those are different creatures. Okay, those are not showcasing Bash as a language. Those are specifically to learn about Bash loops. And so the projects that are going to be for the language on the day are going to be sweet spots. And frankly, I would really love to hand over my stream to an Erlang professional or to a Lua professional on those days and say, tell us why Lua is a great language. What do you use it for? How do you use it? What do you integrate it with? Because Monday and Tuesday boost, Wednesday, Thursday language, F equals free. Yep. And F equals free. Yeah. And then, yeah, like an interview. Yeah. And absolutely. So it's basically a language spotlight. In fact, why don't we call it that? Yeah, I agree. I want to work with other streamers totally on this. For example, I want to have somebody come in and talk about Nim, right? Nim is a really amazing language, and I want people to be able to come in and say, hey, this is what Nim's about. Yeah. So I'm going to call this a language spotlight. And that means that we, even if we don't do what that language is about, we have somebody who knows the language, or if we don't, we just kind of struggle together. Maybe somebody from the stream really knows COBOL. The thing about doing that is that the languages can like infinitely rotate and to get exposure to the language. And then we can also save those videos so somebody can go back and watch those videos. And that cycle of languages could go on for a very long time. And it doesn't have to reset because every language day is a standalone day, and then that would help people that will help them answer the question why does this language exist? What is it really good at doing? And then meanwhile, on Mondays and Tuesdays, we'll be doing the really deeper stuff. That is going to push out how long it's going to take the boost, but I'm going to have to lay that all out. All right, let me take a few minutes of a break, and I'll come back and we'll do some JSON, some structured data. We talked a little bit about structured data already. I don't mind a little bit of debate about that, but I do want to I do want to at least complete an explanation of what it is, and we will make a little project together that's sort of based on the project that's online that you can go look at anytime. And so I'll be back. I'll be back at 12:15. So let's see, Figlet. Figlet. Thank you so much for talking to me, you guys, about getting that ready and set up. I feel much better. I was a little bit scared to talk about this, but I always know it's the best. AFK until 12:10, 12:15. And you know, who knows? Maybe I can get Luke on here and we can like go at it. Maybe I can meet him instead of railing on why I'm, you know, upset about him teaching people to use, you know, less than as a cat replacement. You know, so here we go. All right, and it's a little bit of fish here for you. I'll be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. All right. Cucumber sandwiches. Oh, all right. So, we're actually kind of consistent. It's just Tuesday. It's the wrong day for this. But otherwise, what we're doing today is essentially a language spotlight day. So, how's it going? Let's see. We've been users need a break. Let's see. I'm just going for music technology. Interesting. Great people on the stream. Thanks for coming by. All right, let's go ahead and get going. I'm gonna turn down the chat a little bit. Professor Bob, how's it going? Vegan Bot. Oh, did we get a raid? Well, I think Tmux is great. I think Tmux isn't installed by default. This is true. So it's important that we learn Screen first and then learn Tmux. I agree. And I've been saying that a lot. So that's what that's about. All right, looks like we got a raid to come in. We got a raid at 52. Okay, I was down getting coffee. So just so everybody knows, I'm just going to recap really quick. What do you disagree with, Barry? You got to be more precise. You can't just say you disagree on a chat that's got like 10 seconds of lag. Tmux on machines you control. Agree with that. Yeah. Yeah, I personally don't use Tmux on anything besides my personal workstation or a system that's really under my control. I tend to use a Screen for stuff on other things. But once again, that's something I had to rush through because I was trying to get to, stay on that topic and everything. Just so everybody who knows, I'm just going to recap what happened in 1 minute. For the people who just came in on the raid. As you know, I've been trying to boost along beginners through the Linux Beginner Boost. If you want to follow along with all the developments, it's rdbx.gg. Is the name of the site. I call it a knowledge app. It doesn't have search controls and stuff like that yet, but it will. And we were initially we were going to try to do everything in a 16-week boost, and it was include C programming, JavaScript, a little bit of Go, and then all the terminal stuff. Well, what we found is that we had to really rush over the stuff that I really believe is core to my being, which is all the terminal stuff. That includes Bash, Vim, Tmux, everything else in that range. SSH, curl, links, even Mutt. And so today, the reason it says Reboost is, and Pandoc, of course, this week is about Pandoc and knowledge management. And I'd like that to actually be the first thing we cover. So anyway, as I am prone to do, we've actually reorganized that and restarted. And we are now going to do, as of today, we just decided that Mondays and Tuesdays will be Terminal Master days. They will be focused entirely on a rotating Terminal Master bit of lessons that are fully complete. It's not like go read all this stuff. I'll actually do it. Yeah, something best laid plans. Totally. And then we're going to be going off to begin. I wish I could raid you more. I know it's like our timing is a little bit off. And then we have Wednesdays and Thursdays will be language spotlights, and a language spotlight. Yeah, a language spotlight is 3 hours, 1 day covering the language and talking about two things. Why do I care about this language? And what is the minimum I need to know about coding something in the sweet spot of the language? So Python, that would be automation or machine learning, whatever. Go, it might be a terminal master, a terminal UI application. And then we maybe bring in other people to talk in the Discord or something, people who actually know COBOL. With some people I've already talked to who know NIM, for example. And so on Wednesdays and Thursdays can be language spotlight days. These are not designed to teach you the language. These are designed to demonstrate to you why the language is important We're not going to have a language fight. We're going to talk about why that language is important, why it might be the best tool, and why you might want to go deep dive. You might even meet some other streamers in the process who are really good at that language and can help you learn that language on your own. The primary priority for Monday and Tuesday Beyond Learning Linux Terminal is to become a fully functional autodidact, meaning that you follow the RWX mantra, read, writing, and experiencing or experimenting so that you can learn on your own. And that saves us from having to deep dive into C and C++, and you might have different ideas even about what that looks like for you as an autodidact. And it also means that I can go very deep into Bash and Term and Linux sorts of concepts that are for the terminal. So, conclusion there, today we're going to start out with a day, we're going to do JavaScript, and we're going to do JSON. I've already done JSON before, but I'm going to do it again because you need it in order to understand YAML. So for the next 10 minutes, we're going to talk about the JSON structured data language. And at the end, by the way, if you want to start debating structured data languages, that's fine, but please just hold off. We will be debating and talking about all the other different forms of structured data languages at the end with the rest of the time. Today we have to cover JSON, JavaScript object notation, and YAML. YAML ain't markup language, and those are the two we're gonna talk about. That JSON, is it? I don't know. I might have pronounced it wrong, so I'm gonna set you guys into focus mode a little bit as we do this. I guess I can keep you in casual. So, all right. So first of all, let's as usual, the best way to learn a language is to actually see something done with the language that's in the sweet spot of the language, and the sweet spot of the JSON language is anything that has to be read or exchanged with the internet. And so I want to, one of the first places you're going to encounter JSON is using any sort of API from the web. So for example, curl https gitlab.com api.gitlab.com, and oops, is it ht? Oh, Git host, GitHub. GitHub has one. So there's one big old long ugly one. Now you can't read it very well, but I'm going to show you that this is a tool that I've already talked to you about. It's called JQ. You probably have to install it, but you can pipe that through to. We talked about piping, so you should know that to JQ. And if we just do dot, it will actually structure it. Dot means select the entire content of the JSON file that's coming to it and print it out nicely. So then you get this, which is not very easy to print, but it's a little bit cleaner. So let's go ahead and put that into a file so we can read it. There's also JSON pretty print, a bunch of other stuff, but you can do all of that with JQ, which is probably your best bet for installing the best possible tool to deal with JSON data. JQ. Install it every server. I wish it would too. You got my support, man. I am all about that. So we're gonna just put that into temp dot let's see, github.json file, and it downloaded that for me. I'm a big curl fan. I'm not so much a wget fan. That's why I'm that way. And what do we do? GitHub. So GitHub has a JSON API thing that you can query. And this is just an example of a file that you saw me how I pulled it down. So JSON is the language that was invented by Douglas Crockford, who was big, he's famous for writing JavaScript the good parts back in the day in 2000 or so. And since then it become you could fairly say that this was a reaction to XML, because this was much more understandable to most programmers. And we'll save that for a debate about XML versus all of these things later. It's important that we talk about JSON before we talk about YAML, because YAML is 100% backward compatible with JSON. So anytime you have a YAML file, you can also use a JSON file. So here we have the most usual encounter. When you see a JSON file, almost always it's going to be an object, and that's the term from JavaScript, a JavaScript object, otherwise known as a hash. We haven't covered those in Bash yet, but that would be a collection of key value pairs. Here's the key, the name, and here's the value, or sometimes people say name value pairs, separated by commas. A few things you need to know about JSON. JSON, all of the string types must have double quotes around them. Must have double quotes. Single quotes are not allowed at all. So that's really important. You can never have a line break inside of a value, an actual line break. Name, value, keep are the same as attributes. Sort of, yeah. If you're looking at like a properties file in JavaScript, you cannot do comments. So the important thing to understand about JSON is JSON was not made for humans. People mistake this all the time. People slam YAML all the time because they, oh, JSON's so much easier and humans can read it. Like, no, they can't. JSON, as you saw before I cleaned it up, right? This is what I got. This is what I got. Oops. Well, that's interesting. Actually, it was pretty clean. Oh well. But most of the time when you grab JSON data, it is all like smashed up, and so you get this. Yeah, it is really clean. But the reason it's so strict is because it is wicked fast to parse. It is. I don't know this, but I would suggest it's probably the fastest language to parse in the world, and so much so that you see people writing a lot of their cache data files as plain old JSON because it can be parsed so effectively. Why can it be parsed so effectively? Because there's not a lot of options here. You have to have quotes around your names and your values. You cannot split your lines. You can't do comments. All those things that you miss make it fast. Because it's designed to be exchanged. It's designed to be parsed above all. The fact that a human can read it is just a bonus. That's not the intent of this language. It's for data exchange and storage above all. Never forget that. If you try to start using a JSON file as a configuration file, you're gonna be sad. You might as well just do YAML and then make it all JSON. The only reason we're going to talk about a version of this with Alacrity, there is a case where you might actually want to use JSON in your YAML if you choose yourself to make a script that does something that should have been done by hand instead. In which case, the really great thing about YAML is, yeah, you can just use JSON why? Because it's 100% compatible. So that's one thing. Only fast thing which has JavaScript. Yeah. So, my coworkers using JSON config files. I'm getting so frustrated now the project is getting more complex. That is a problem. It's a problem. And it will get more and more of a problem. But the important thing to think here, so again, why do you pick JSON as a structured data format? You pick it because it is the universal standard for exchanging data between applications. There's no debate about that. That is it. And so you need to know it. So let's learn it. So I've already showed you the key value pairs, but really what we're talking about is a bunch of tinier types. And so I'm going to back up a bit. I'm going to say, we're going to do the types really quick. So the types, we'll try to get to I think I'm going to go for another 5-10 minutes on this. So we're going to do, let's do types.json. Okay. So strictly speaking, you can't, okay. So the first thing you need to understand is you cannot have, you can, but it's not common. You could have just a type. And so this actually, like having just a number 1, that is actually a valid type. It's a valid type. Okay. You can have a JSON file with one thing in it, right? Let's make a string. So let's talk about the basic types. All JSON is YAML, but not all YAML is JSON. Yep. So we can say something. All right. Now it's giving me an error there, but that's still a valid type. I'll prove it. Okay. So it's a valid type because it's a single type by itself. Now you would never do that, but I just want to show you that those are actually types. So this is a string or a scalar, and yeah, and then you have this here, and I'm actually really glad that it's a superset because it allows you to use JavaScript in place of JSON in place of YAML when you want to write an automation for something that was otherwise designed to be used by hand, such as Alacrity. So you just have to remember to put things right. You don't do that, something that will fail, right? So that's a fail. So the types we have numbers. By the way, let's do all the number types. So 1 is a number. Oops, here, let me actually make it easier for us so not have to do this every time. So JQ dot /temp /types JSON. Oh, is it types? I think it is types. All right, so types.json, we still get the number 1. Actually, I'm going to put this into a loop so you can see when I have a problem. So you guys remember all the JavaScript while true, do a little nyan cat experiment. Remember that? Done. And let's see, we'll sleep for 1 second and be done. And let's clear the screen. Let's do that. Let's clear and then do that. So now we're watching the output of this program over here. So, so let's go change this. I take it to something. You see I have a something value. It should print out something. If I do something by itself, it's not going to work. It's going to give me an error. Oh, sorry, that's not a value. If I do 1.0 or 1.2, it'll give me a nice thing. If I do 1.0 e to the 10th, it will do it. So it does. You see this? It actually does floating point. We talked about this before. It does negative numbers. So these are all a number type as far as you're concerned with JSON. They're all different types of numbers. But these are some of the notations that it understands. It understands an empty string. So if you have nothing, there's no value, it'll actually give you a null. That's like no value is provided. And then it has all of the those things combined. So let's do that. So we have watch. I don't like watch session. I don't get the color. It gets rid of the color. It does a lot of other things too that are wrong. I use watch all the time, but it's not as good as a while. Not in this case. Plus it gums up my screen with extra data that I don't want to put on the stream. That's why I'm not using it. Thanks for the recommendation. So here we go. We're going to put so 1. Oops. Now, you see I can't have 2 numbers here. It's going to give me an error, right? Because I need to, well, that's not fair because it's actually doing each line separately, which is not technically, if you're going to put, the point I'm trying to make here is you need to combine stuff together. So let's go back through the basic types again. String. So you have a string, right? So you have numbers, which we talked about. So, you know, negative 1.5e10. Oops. So we have numbers. We have true and false. So those are also types. They're lowercase in case if you're a Python user. False and true. That's a Boolean type, true or false. We have the null type, which is empty. It's like there's nothing here. That's it. So those are the only types that we have. And if you want to combine, so everything else in a JSON file is some combination of those. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Some combination of these things. All right. So now we have. So let's combine. First of all, let's make a list of numbers. Okay, that's an easy thing. So we use, and I love that Crockford did this. He just said, you know, we'll just use the syntax from most languages that already exists. 45, you know, E10, whatever, and it will actually print out a nice list. Okay, so that's a list of numbers. Something to note about JavaScript and JSON is that lists are not required to be the same type, which is true of lots of other languages. So I can actually put a string in here, and I get a list that has a string in it. All right, so there's 45e Google. Yeah, so that's a good joke. I like that joke. So as you can see, you can mix your other types into a basic list, also officially called an array. You'll hear about list is actually a Python popular term, which I really like actually, because it is, you know, it describes what it is. But Python's really good at describing things in ways that make sense, as opposed to it's an associative array. You know, what is that? You know, it's a hash. Well, it's actually not. It's a hash. It's a you know, it's a linked list rendered as a hash map or whatever. You know, it's like. So anyway, this is a collection. So whenever you have more than one of a thing, I call it a collection. So does Python. This is a list, an array, or it's a collection. Okay, so I combine a whole bunch of things together. And of course, you can actually, because it's ABC teaching roots, yeah. So still have tuples. Yes, it does. And so we're going to go ahead and make. Well, what if I want to make a list inside of a list? Okay, so there we go. So you see what I just did there? Now there's a list inside of a list, and this is how you can implement matrices in Python, but you can represent matrices and stuff like that in JSON. You can represent any modern data structure can be pretty much represented here. But you know, a tuple is a thing in Python that's read-only list essentially, and those kind of, you know, what's done to the type are not defined. It's just this is the structure of the data, not how the data is to be treated. So there you go. So another thing, wouldn't it be nice if I could put some names on these things? Yeah, lots of tuples. So the other way to combine things is to give them a name. So if I say 52, which is how old I am, I can say my age is 52. Okay, so now I'm 52. The problem is you can't have a collection of key value pairs unless you make it into a map. It takes everything in me to use the word object on this, but that is a JavaScript word for map. Okay, it's really important that you understand that. Yeah, there's arrays in Python. Yeah, they're different than lists. I know. They're all different forms of collections. I get it. Thank you for that. And if you're talking about Java, Java's got so many different ways to group, a series of things together, vectors and everything. So the important thing to take away from this is that JSON has taken the common data structures of all languages pretty much and codified it so that all communications can happen without regard for what the back-end language is. How's it going? So all right, so here we go. So we have age equals 52. So if you have this type of collection, which is called an object in JSON object notation, this is actually the primary version for it. It has curlies. And so if you work at MongoDB, which is where it's an entire database built on JSON, their cards, their business cards are all JSON, right? And they all have curly brackets because it's all about the key value pairs. But I wanted to start by showing you the simple types and the arrays first, because they're just as you can have an entire document that's just one thing, or you can have an entire JSON document that's a list of things using brackets, square brackets. But you also more commonly will see this. You'll see an age like here, and you'll see, now you can put white space in here. You just can't put it inside of the values. These are maps. Yep. These are so again, another term out there, Go calls these maps. So we're going to do this. We're going to say age, name, and if I put Rob, I'm going to get an error. Why? Two reasons for this error. What's my errors, guys? Well, just like a list, I have to put quotes around it, and I need a comma. White space. Nope. White space is fine. It just has to have. This is in Python. This is called a dictionary. But what I'm trying to tell you is that JSON was originally formulated in JavaScript, and therefore their name for a dictionary is object. And it's really important that you understand that whenever you talk to a JavaScript developer. They'll throw around the word object all the time, and really what they're talking about is dictionary, maps, associative arrays, whatever you refer to them as. Okay, so it's really important that you understand that. The standard map is basically a similar type. Yep, because C++, I think they call them a map because of hash map. Map is my most favorite name. Dictionary is my second favorite. But yeah, there are lots. They all mean a different. They logically and structurally they mean the same things, but they have, if you want to get really pedantic, they have very, very different meaning deep down, because usually they refer to how they're implemented. So for example, hash uses a hashing algorithm to implement key value pairs. It's actually, and C doesn't even have it. You have to write it. So it's, yeah, but call it an object is really seriously confusing, because heap is your favorite because, or symbol table, it's another way people say it. So strictly speaking, this is not an object based on most. The thing about JavaScript is particularly interesting is that any calls it a hash. Yeah, I don't know. They're all, there's so many names for this. It's very confusing. That's why I'm glad we're doing a little bit of language stuff here. Anyway, so you have this. Now, obviously, you can combine types, right? So you can get complex data structures by combining them. So we can put, like, I don't know, interests, and then I could put, I can do this, and I can use white space for this in JSON. I can smash it all together if I want, right? So in my interest could be, I don't know, Pi, Linux, yoga, long walks on the beach. I don't know, so, and here, so, what have I done? Cupcakes, can you put a key in an array list? No, you can't. I forgot sunsets. Yes, sunsets. Sunsets. All right, so we're going to put a comma here, and see, it organizes it. Now you might think, well, gosh, I want to. Did you see Linus Torvalds unofficially said that 80 columns is no longer a restriction? We should be able to use as long of lines as we want now. It was in the news yesterday. Anyway, so Linux Pi, 99, Linux Pi, Yoga, Long Weeks on the Beach, Sunsets, blah blah blah, right? So you got to be sure. So far I haven't tried to put any line returns in here. I'm going to break something here. I'm going to cross the streams. All right, now watch this. So I'm going to hit enter, and my thing, my VI thing gives me a problem because it can't use line returns. And this is where JSON falls on its face, because when you are starting to use JSON to, store the content of your description, any kind of longer content that you might find in a document or a knowledge document of some kind, you get really important problems. Well, these are keys. These are strings, but they're considered keys, if that's what you meant. So in order to do that, I have to do a /n. It's the only way to do it. Okay. Now, some people love that. You know why they love that? Because that means that, I like 80 because it means, we'll talk about it another day. So a lot of people like the fact that there is no possibility for a line return being in any value. And this is why they like it. Let me show you what people do with JSON all the time, including streams in Socket.io. All right. This is more likely to be the way you would encounter a JSON record. All right. Now watch this. Boom, boom. See what I mean? So I can have, we'll put another Rob here. And now I have a bunch of records. So this is a very common design pattern to find in JSON. So what people will do, you'll see people write logs in JSON. You don't need any comma at the end of each. Yes, absolutely not. These don't need commas because these are considered separate records. All right. So it is, and this is why JQ doesn't barf. It is not uncommon to see people create JSON logs and JSON chat record streams, that are one consistent stream of JSON objects. This is how Socket.io works. So it sends a stream of JSON objects, and each one is one per line, and that way they can parse the line reliably by saying, hey, when I get to a line return, I'm done. And that's really nice because that's how, TCP/IP is kind of built. So when you have an open connection, the default is to read the next line. And so by doing that and by eliminating the possibility to ever have a line return in any value, you provide the ability to provide this really powerful logging mechanism that's really friendly to machines and to network communications, but it sucks for humans, right? Because we have to run it through a JQ translator to see what's going on. And if we want to even read that big long, the Long Walks on the Beach is just one line. Normally when you encounter something like that, it's like much more than that. It could fill the whole screen because it's so much data. So when it comes to transferring data and managing data and exchanging data, JSON is king for all of these reasons, but it has the limitations like we talked about. So enter YAML. YAML came around the same time. It's important that you understand. So we are going to shift gears here and switch to YAML now. I'll talk about YAML as much as I can, and then we're going to need a little bit more time to talk about it because it's more complicated. But if there's anybody who has any questions, I trust you'll ask them in the chat as we go forward. But I'm going to kind of put a thumbtack in that now. I think we've talked about everything there is to know about JSON. YAMLs for mammals. YAMLs for mammals. I like it. I'm going to have to put that in my thing. About working with APIs is figuring out how to get the right data from the message JSON. Okay, so since you just said that, let's let me use 10 minutes to introduce you to the JQ tool, because this boost, of course, is everything I do is primarily for the terminal, and for helping you get around it. As you can see already, just sending this complex collection of data to let's see, yet another Rob. Sending this, and by the way, you can put emojis and everything in here. They don't have to be escape. So it's UTF-8 fully compatible with Unicode. So let me just talk briefly about JQ. Again, I'm not going to give you the full JQ summary. We're not going to deep dive into JQ. You need to deep dive on your own. This is an exposure kind of thing. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to show you. Whoops. So save this, and I'm going to go over here. I'm going to change the JQ query and give you a really whirlwind tour of how JQ works. Okay. So JQ, first of all, I mean, it's huge. I mean, it's some people would say it's too long. It kind of overreaches in what it can provide. It's not particularly fast, by the way. It's if you really want fast JSON parsing, you want to unmarshal it is a word for taking JSON and converting it into a structure or anything, frankly, any flat texty kind of data, converting it from flat texty sort of data into an actual structure in a computer language is called unmarshaling. Marshaling is going the other direction. It's like making it into flat data that can be stored and transferred and everything like that. Sometimes you'll hear it called serialization as well. So it's a slightly different thing, but whatever. Anyway, so you're dealing with this structured data. Go has by far, besides Node and Dino, hands down, Go has the best JSON parsing I've ever seen. It's built into the structures automatically, so you can actually just open one from a file and it will automatically unmarshal it for you. You don't have to even write any extra code unless you want to. JSON is the same way. JSON will, obviously you just do JSON.parse and you get it. Don't ever evaluate JSON code because it is JavaScript code. People will commonly evaluate a JSON file, which is the stupidest thing you can ever do with regard to structured data, because when you eval the content, you're just evaling it, trusting it to be JSON data. It could be anything. It could be any I've seen people do that. That is like so disastrously bad. That's like if you find that, I would fire you on the spot. So you don't ever want to eval JSON data in JavaScript, but you can do JSON.parse and you can have your data anyway. But JQ is a terminal solution to that. That's kind of fun. People call it the set of JSON, and it really is. So I can do JQ dot says give me the whole thing. Type, and then we'll do that. Yes, I think I do talk about escaping. That's a good point. Let's talk about that. I do think you have escaping. I don't remember though. Let's go check. Yeah, you do have escaping for sure. Yeah, you do. You do have escaping. Yep. So there we go. I don't remember which one that one is. Let's go do. Give my yet another Rob. Let's put it in my name. How about that? How about that? Yep. There we go. Thanks for covering that. That's a good thing to cover. I forgot to cover. So we have escaping going on. And so here is how you pick the thing. I have 10 minutes to show you this. So what's really great about it, though, is that you can dive down onto it. So if I say I want well, in this particular case, there's lots of items. I might have to simplify it. I don't know. Let's see here. You know what? Anyway. I'm going to do, it's only going to do the first one. So that's why I'm kind of like wondering. Yep, there we go. I find myself using JSON.tool from Python. Ugh, no, not me. No, I would much rather use JQ. It's so much more powerful. I mean, there are lots of tools out there. Don't get me wrong. Actually, YQ is written in Python. It translates YAML into JSON and then uses JQ. So it's really slow, but it works. So here, this gives you the name from every single line. If I wanted to have, if you wanted a raw format, you could do raw like that, and that would give you the actual stuff that's in there. I would love a proper YQQ. I've actually started one so many times I can't count in Go, we need a proper YQ done in Rust. You want to make a name for yourself in the world? It won't happen though. You know why? It won't happen because of the complexity of YAML. That's why it doesn't exist yet. Even YQ is broken. It doesn't support true YAML. It supports simplified YAML, which defeats the whole purpose in the first place. All right, here we go. Just so you know that this is a thing. All right, YQ is a thing, and you can parse stuff out. If you have a single file that's all, so this is this is not true JSON. This is what you find in a log file. What is actually the way you would do this in properly, as you would put a comma, like people have said. And if you wanted to make it an actual structure where everything is the same, Strictly speaking, you need to have it be something like that. And that is now a collection of objects. That's all one thing. So now when I click name, oops, can I, this is another reason JQ is good, is it does give you that sort of search in Crystal School. Yeah. Let's see, cannot index array with string name. Let's see, what am I missing here? So this is another thing. It's like, I need to like JQ this just cause, basically, you see what I was doing? I was converting it into an actual collection. Which one? Crystal. Crystal is a really great Ruby replacement. Guys, in case you're wondering, Crystal is an LLVM language, which means it's fast and C compatible, just like Rust, exactly like Rust, but written essentially in Ruby. The syntax is pretty much Ruby, and it's gotten wildly popular in certain circles. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I bet it hasn't really taken off. I like that we can do a language spotlight now about those kinds of things. So let's see here. So now we have this. So now because it is like one in a list in an array, we have to get rid of that. So I'm actually going to simplify this and go back to our original object, just to teach you JQ before we have to end here and move on to YAML for the last hour. So I'm making it so you can see it. I mean, I could have, prettified it really fast, but whatever. All right. So I'm trying to make a point here. All right. So you have this thing printing out. Now here's how you select the individual parts of it with JQ. So say you want the name, you just put .name, gives you the name. Say you want the age, you put the age. Okay. We have a list, right? Well, the list is interests. It'll show you the whole thing. I want the second interest. So I do lists. So this is called an indexed array. This is the first time you've ever done any coding or any structured data. The way you refer to the items in a list or an array is by referring to them by number. And by number, I mean 0 is the first number. Actually, it's pretty controversial. By the way, as soon as you start using brackets, you have to put quotes around this because brackets have special meaning to the shell. So that's what's going on there. And then we have pi. So if you want the actual value without the curly, with that, you can do like that. And you can do stuff like this. You can use that value saying, echo first, as a first interest colon, and then, pi, right? You can combine the stuff we've learned from the shell and use it, like said, for JSON, which is really powerful considering how much data you can get these days. And if you look at my Twitch tool, it's using all curl and JQ stuff. It's not really, you don't really need more than that. I'm not saying if you have a substantial application of any magnitude that you should use bash and curl and JQ for everything. But I tell you what, it's really great for two things. It's great for prototyping, so you can get, really work out what you want to make and not make stuff unnecessarily in your big, fat, ugly other language, whatever that language is. Or do you, so you can really kind of get your head around what you want to make. And you can't edit JSON with JQ. You actually can edit JSON with JQ. And in fact, you can also do math with it. You can edit as much. Put it this way, you can edit it as much as you can with sed without the -i, if you follow me, right? So you can modify the output of the JQ program so that it essentially changes the values of the output and creates a new object with new values. And it's not too complicated. I'm going to leave you to study that on your own. You can do the man JQ and go look at it. But you can actually write JSON with JQ, which is where some people think it kind of overreaches. This is all the stuff that's covered like way down in the bottom of the man page here. You can actually pipe. This is really cool. I want to show you how to do this, but it's just an entire language. And we're talking about language review. JQ is a language. It's a query language. jQuery today. That's a different question about JavaScript and jQuery. I think it's a legacy thing at this point and shouldn't be picked for greenfield projects, but it's nice. Particularly, my opinions on JavaScript are not very mainstream. So that's not a topic for today. So anyway, but you can see how you can like combine stuff, and so yeah, you can actually see this. You can actually add values together. You can calculate, make calculations. I mean, it's just really cool. I think it should be mandatory. I think it's definitely a core utilities member, but the fact that the core utilities team would probably never add it because they're Free Software Foundation people. It's kind of sad, but whatever. I think GNU tools have seen their last days, and I hope they die. There, if you really want to know what I think, stay on topic, Rob. All right, so and here we go. So I think we've covered JSON pretty well. You talked about escaping. We talked about combining things together. Let me give you a challenge, okay? So the challenge to you is, and I do this to everybody that I mentor privately, or in person, whatever you want to call it. Make some structured data in JSON about something. So, and put it in your notes. So you guys, if you're following the Boost, you should already have a notes repo, a code book of some kind on a Git repo. You should already be able to edit in VI and all that. Open it up and create some samples in JSON. How would you write this JSON in Markdown? All right, so let's do that. So let's show you how you would share this JSON data with somebody in Markdown, and like as in kind of a notes kind of thing. So notes.md. And I'm gonna actually read in my temp.types.json, and I colon r temp type. Is I do type.json or types? What was it? Types.json. Okay. Colon r temp types.json. There we go. So a proper database. Yes, querying is a proper selling point of a proper database. Yes, and we're not going to be talking about SQL, but it's probably important that we do say that structured data, flat data as it's sometimes called, is not proper database data. But proper databases do actually use this data all the time. They either import it or export it, because this is how data is transferred between databases. There's another structured query, structured data language format that we'll talk about at the end, CSV and stuff like that, if we have time today. So anyway, so here is, this is actually a Markdown file. Here is an example. So I'm showing you how to write about structured data. Here's an example of JSON. And we do three backticks JSON. Okay. And down here, 3 backticks. Okay. And then this is just carrying on yesterday's work. So you can actually render this. Let me show you how that would be rendered. Let me get rid of this over here. So if you were rendering these notes with pandoc, you could do pandoc. We talked about this yesterday, but since this week is about this stuff, notes.md. And now we get this. Look at that. Look at how monstrous that is. You guys see it? Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? So check this out. So cd temp sample. I got 2 minutes to play around. Sample. And then I'm going to move the notes.md to here and call it readme.md, like you probably should do. And now I've got a readme.md. And here's my sample of JSON. I'm actually going to render this and preview it for you. That start files. No, we can remove that start file. Get rid of that. All right. So let's render this Markdown. Okay. So this is some Markdown, and say here is another line, and up here a little bit of review yesterday, and we'll say two. Let's do 2 of them, and say JSON. Let's say JavaScript object notation. So I'm taking notes like you would. This doesn't really have a project, so that's why I'm kind of doing this as the project. And then you would build it. So how do you build it? Well, let's do pandoc. We did this yesterday. Pandoc -o index.html -s for standalone. We're going to use the dumb template that it comes with. And then we're going to do readme.md, and that should be enough. All right, it doesn't like the title, but we don't care. And now we can actually preview this. So I'm going to fire up my preview as a command that uses, I'm sorry for the white people. I should probably localhost that. There you go. So this is the code. This is what your Markdown code looks like after it's rendered with Pandoc. It actually, by default, does syntax highlighting for you. I have mine turned off in my projects, but as you can see, this is the best way to take notes about stuff as you're working on them. What does it look like in links? Maybe you care about that. So links, index.html. It writes it just fine, it puts it all as cyan and shows you what you got here. All right, so this has been kind of a conversation about JSON, what it is, what it does. Make sure you get that in your notes, and I've showed you how to add it to your notes if you want to. The idea of adding your own notes as you go and making your own code book is something I'm a real fan of. That means that you are writing your own textbook, as opposed to having somebody give you a textbook that you're never going to know where it is and look on it and do your own searching. And that's a big part of the RWX approach, writing your own stuff and then being able to go back and process that later. All right. Is preview an alias? Preview is a little bit more than that, but I can give you one right now if you want. Let me see if it's givable. So preview does require... preview requires you to install browser sync, which requires Node. But other than that, you're welcome to have a copy. Here you go. So, oops. Oh. So there's a copy of the preview script if you'd like. It's a great way of like looking at your web browser. They also say that rewriting things you learn in your own words is the best way to learn from most people. I completely agree. This is why I'm actually kind of slow to do the RWX GG stuff, even though I really do it a lot, because I don't want you to depend on it. I'll maybe go there for ideas and stuff, but you should be creating your own knowledge bases. And that's what this week is about. It's about managing your own knowledge. So every time I do a project, I want to show you how to parlay and put that project into your notes yourself. So that you're building your own, the art of note-taking. The art of note-taking is a fundamental part of the beginner boost. It's a really essential part of becoming an autodidact. And I'm going to, before I go my little break here, go read rwx.gg/what. Actually, just go to the main page and type on the Progressive Knowledge app, and it will show what a minimum viable knowledge base is. Also RWX, where is it? Where's my already anticipated? RWX, autodidact. Becoming an autodidact, what it means, what is it? And actually I think it's still RWX, yeah, there you go. If you go to rwx.gg/RWX, the mantra of ancient autodidacts, and this talks about, a big part of becoming a master is learning and writing and teaching others, and doing your own research. And that's what we were showing how Aaron Schwartz did when he first started. I'm going to take a 5-10 minute break. I'll be right back. And when I come back, we will do YAML for a full hour, which should be enough to get you going and answer questions. It's a great word. Yep. Yeah, oh, that's nice. I'm glad you guys had I love hearing about people who run into people who are more interested in teaching you how to learn on your own than making you dependent on them. You guys probably know the difference, right? There's educators, there's primary goal is to have you depend on them, and they usually have an antagonistic relationship, you versus them, like drill sergeant kind of situation going. And then you have other people that are too friendly and don't teach you anything. then you have other people who are like, they're like, go learn it yourself. Like, but I don't know. Okay, go here and go read this. And actually, that's why the Learning Python the Hard Way, I forget his name. He's one of my favorite authors, because he basically made a whole site, was like, all right, go learn about loops in Python. When you learn that, come back here and do this. He's like, go learn it on your own. I love the whole Learn the Hard Way series. Yeah, I love Haskell. It's just a little bit over my head. We're going to talk about that. I'm on my break now, so I guess I can talk about it. Pandoc is written in Haskell, and I've gone through Haskell. I'm going to come back, by the way, in 6 minutes, and I'll be 6 or 7 minutes. I'll be back here with you guys, and we'll do some YAML. And then if we have time, we can debate that. AFK until returning at, how about 1:15? Does that sound okay? And let's see, cucumbers. Returning, that's like way too hard to read. AFK until, how's that one? That one a little better? Gotta have them fish though. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. They're like, it's literally exactly, how cool is that? It put it exactly on the right spot. I couldn't have planned that better. It just like, boom. I don't want to go away. I did not script it to be that exact size. I need to. That is so cool. It's like there's actually fish under there and ships on this. I just want to sit and watch that all day now. I don't need a break. I just want to watch my fish. I like the fish. Gives his propaganda on autodidacts. I really do. My propaganda. Take on the propaganda. Become an autodidact. Я. Ну что вы думаете об этом? I can't look away now. I'm like obsessed with the fish. Все супер? Супер. Все супер. Все супер. That's been a long time since I've heard that. Strashna. When it's about self-empowerment. That's not propaganda. Propaganda is the opposite, right? I can't stop looking at this. To страшно. Я то страшнее. 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 То страшнее. О, страшно. Страшнее. Думаем, что ты красавчик. Действительно? Скажи, правда думаете? Но я считаю, что мне надо... Как сказать break по-русски? To go on break по-русски. Как это сказать? Go take a break по-русски. Не знаете? Перерыв, конечно, перерыв. Мне перерыв надо. Сделать перерыв. Я это слово знал и забыл. Вообще забыл все эти слова. Спасибо большое. About 1:15. Bye. Black Lives Matter. Yes, they do. How's it going, guys? Did we get rated again? Again? Learn how to script. You can do that more effectively if you want to get your message across. All right, more fishies, less fishies. YAML's quite a bit to cover. I'm not going to get into the weeds, but there are a couple other things that we're going to cover that you do not know. Oh, Unix porn, Linux porn. Those are great. Minimal desktops. Yes, yes, yes. Easy knows that Vim exists. Well, now you do. Actually, no, that is not ASCII Aquarium. That is much better. You want to see what ASCII Aquarium does? There's your ASCII Aquarium. Who, mine? My Twitter? My Twitter is pretty intensely mean most of the time. I'm sorry if I've offended you, but don't read my Twitter if you don't want to be mad. Let me show you the actual, if you want the fish, here it is. Give fish. You can have my fishies if you want them. Thanks to Undead Leech, Alacrity Maintainer. All right, we have 45 minutes or so to get into YAML, so I'm going to get right into it and turn the music down. We will make a, I'll go ahead and make a sample in here of YAML. And I suggest you do the same. So, what is YAML? I don't need to tell you. You can go look it up. You go to the YAML page. Actually, rdvx.gg/lang/YAML. And oops, I just wrote that one, so it's not there yet. I haven't committed it yet. So, well, in that case, you can just search for YAML. You'll go to the YAML.org page, which we'll go to add together. I actually have some people see YAML and they're like, why would I use anything from like 2009? Well, you don't want a standard for data structuring languages to change often. It's not the kind of thing that you want to update. It's actually a good thing that it hasn't had to change that long. So I'm going to pull up the spec, even though we're not going to look at the spec very much today, other than to remind me what to cover. But here, the biggest thing to cover is the example. And we will cover that. In fact, I'm going to use their example, which is really a really fast way to go through it. I don't even want to use a stupid web page. I'm going to use it like this. You thought what would be more tech related? My Twitter? God no. That's like my personal blog. Yeah. You didn't like that? I was like, whatever. I looked at Rob's Twitter once. There was a lot more LGBT content than I was expecting. We're talking about pushing LGBT? Yeah. Look, I like, it's political. I have opinions, and if you guys don't share those opinions, that's fine. Let's go ahead and start with YAML. Stick on topic. All right. So YAML is about structure data that humans can read, and I'm tempted to show you how I actually use YAML to manage my my system for invoicing and stuff. Let me just say this. I'll give you one example. And SKAD, let's see, P invoice. This is a little app I made, and it actually prints out and increments the date for the invoices. And it takes the first the time frame and the first day, 0601, and then it just dumps out an invoice without the sessions. It needs to have the date in here to do this properly. And so there we go. So it's really great. The really great thing you can do with YAML is you can integrate it into filters, that filters and VI wand commands, exclamation points, that will go into other code, or other files. So you can actually use it to create data structures that are pretty. And the other thing I want to show is that you can actually mix the structure of the data with JSON. So let's start out the same way that I started out with the other one really quickly, and then we'll if we get through that, we'll do the more advanced things. So the first thing to do is to just make a file. So we'll do types.yaml. And just like before, we can have a type all by itself. The difference is that YAML needs a marker to show where the file begins. And this is actually a really good thing because it allows YAML to be combined with other text and other file formats very easily. So I can't just have like a 1, I don't think. I can't. The other problem is do I have YQ on here? I don't think I do. YQ, did I install YQ? Nope. I don't have a known command for YQ. Yeah, YQ is kind of a dumb Python wrapper for JQ that it's really stupid actually. It doesn't do stuff usually very well. But I think the reason it's giving me an error this time is because it is not a suitable YAML file. So you cannot have YAML data that is not identified. Okay, so you have to identify the data. I wonder if YQ is going to get happy finally with me. Probably not. Let's see. Yep. I'm trying to decide. I'm just trying to rule out that YQ is not telling me the absolute truth. So age 52. Oh, nope. Just ain't gonna do it. Yeah, YQ's dead. Anyway, so I guess I'm gonna have to just show you. I really wish we had a JQ. Will you guys, somebody get on it. Somebody make us a JQ that works for YQ, for YAML. But there is one, it just sucks. So unfortunately, I'm just gonna have to tell you how this stuff works, okay? So it doesn't make any sense to make a YAML file without the YAML markers. And the YAML markers, YAML, is the basis of YAML. Yes, it is. Okay, so let's actually show that. So actually, let's see if we can prove that. Well, I can't prove it with YAML. I mean, I'm just thinking I might have to write a generic YAML parser in Go or Rust that just spews it out so we can prove that it's actually YAML syntax. The best thing you have to make sure you have YAML syntax right now is your syntax helper. So, but I have never ever seen a YAML document that did not have a marker in it. All right, so we're going to start like that. Oh, I have applications that use YAML all the time. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I guess I could show you that. I mean, I hadn't really prepared that for today. Let me see if. Yeah, I was going to show that too. I actually do have that. I'm glad you mentioned that. But that, okay, so when we did JSON, I showed you big stuff. I showed you the good things. So let me show you. Thanks for getting me back on track. So let me show you what YAML looks like. So this is one of the reasons I like YAML. Watch me. I can change the opacity. So I have a thing that changes the opacity of my background. And all it's doing is manipulating the YAML data. And I'm going to show you that YAML data now. So this is a sweet spot for YAML. It uses ProPy to change the background opacity. This is another reason you should learn Perl. It is the king of regular expressions. You might think that's too dense to understand, but that's fine because it's a regular expression. That's why it's hard to understand, not because it's Perl. So we're going to do opacity 7. I'll go back to that. Anyway, let me show you. So it's in .config alacritt. This is YML. There's a big debate about whether to use YML or YAML as the extender. As a file name extension, Wikipedia says both are fine, but the YAML site says that YAML is the official one, even though all the Docker stuff uses .yml. I tend to use .yml now after having been somewhat dogmatic about the other one for a while. So what do we have? The biggest thing people hate about YAML is whitespace. And if you're a Python person, you don't care. YAML was invented during the whitespace insanity of like the early 2000s. CoffeeScript was a thing, and everything had whitespace. I'm going to go on a limb here. For data structures, YAML is fine, if you ask me. Yeah, indentation is confusing to people because that's significant white space. And that is, making a language out of it like Python has done is a serious disaster. And if you don't believe me, go read the lists, go read the thing where they're trying to make multi-line anonymous functions and can't do it because they made white space significant in the Python language. Haskell has the same problem. Haskell's functional, though, so nobody cares because they're not doing that kind of thing, and they build multi-line functions into it. So my point is, I hate significant white space in languages. A lot of people are okay with it, but the real reason I mention it at all, and without getting into a language fight, is because YAML is a data structure language, and so this kind of language significant white space isn't as serious of a violation. One of the things that I can show you here is how you can actually clean it up so that it doesn't just look big and monstrous like this. This is a configuration file for Alacrity. It's the terminal that I use. And this is an important thing that a lot of people don't see in YAML that they make actually very effective use of. I was super surprised to see that Alacrity had the sense to actually use pointers or references, whatever you want to call them. What this says is identify Groovebox as being this, like, map it to this scalar, that's their terminology, which means essentially make Groovebox a pointer to this data. And then we're going to talk about what H means. The only time it's a list is when it's a dash. We're going to go through them all. Don't worry, I'm just giving you an overview right now. We're going to go really detailed into it in just a second. But see this down here? So look at that. So this colors, it says set the colors to Groovebox. So, and it has, here's another one for Xterm. So if I wanted to change my color settings, rather than repeating all of this stuff, which you would otherwise have to do, I can change the colors reference to be to a different data structure. That level of referencing drives people crazy and is also super awesome at the same time because it allows you to not repeat yourself. You can actually use ideas and concepts from actual programming and symbolic links and stuff to reference other things. So let's actually rip apart the syntax of language. And for that, the best way to do that is to show you the actual standard example that they have. Where is it? Oh, if I can find it. This patch, desktop document. Nope. So it's like really dark. Here we go. Here's a full length example. There are lots of YAML pages where you can go mess around with them. So we're going to zoom right in a lot so you can... Wait, that's not zooming. Why are you not zooming? Oh, there we go. Because I want to show you the whole thing here. Oh boy. Full length example. All right, so I might have to turn it down the size a little bit more. Oh boy. Good old graphics web browsers. I hate them. Can I please not do this? All right, I take it back. I take it all back. Yeah, so the linking it's just the beginning, by the way. So we're gonna do links, actually, Markdown. No, what am I searching? I am really, where's the coffee? It's YAML, there's a zero click on it. YAML.org is going to be so much easier to read. So, full length example. Here we go. All right. So here we go with the full length example. So this stuff at the top is one of the few things that I don't have my head around yet. I've been trying hard to learn this because I think what this does is it lets you actually establish different types of data structures, which we're talking about YAML. One of the most powerful things about YAML that is not used a lot and understood by many, including me, is its typing. You can actually create types with YAML, and you can force other data files to comply to those types. It's very an XML sort of schema sort of thing. I haven't used it yet. I actually think that's one of the most powerful ways to do it. I would actually like to do that for my own project because I have a particular set of, a structure that I need to maintain, and I want to make sure that when I enter data that I don't violate that structure. And the way to do that is to have those files that define the structure. And I actually think that some editors will pull down remote copies of the type structure so that you can then use them that way. And I'm jumping way ahead to the most powerful things about YAML, freezing and thawing objects using that metadata. Yeah. And so does Rust, by the way. Rust metadata library. It's like translator between all the different ones and pickle and everything. It's just so cool. It's like really, really well done. Anyway, so the first thing you're going to notice is that because it's designed for humans, that the key value pair combinations don't care about quotes. It's very rare to see a lot of quoting going on in a YAML file. Another thing that's unusual is that it's very common to see dashes because they're much easier to read, and underscore, they're also easier to type. So you start to see files that start to look more and more like what you would see if somebody were to make a text file representing some structured data, like an invoice. So there's a date format too. So this is actually would be perceived as a number. My editor will actually think this is a number until it gets up to here, and then it'll do it wrong. So that's another problem with YAML, is because it is so complex. It's very hard to find VI. If anybody has any extra suggestions, let me know. It's very hard to find syntax highlighters in Vim or anything that truly syntax highlight properly YAML, because it's such a complicated syntax that people get this wrong all the time. So this gets detected as a number when it's not. This is a string. As soon as this comes in, that's considered a string. YAML does have a date stamp type, but I don't think anybody uses it. We just use strings. So this will be detected as a number, and this will be detected as a scalar string. And these are all, same thing. You can't have space in there, obviously, but you can put them in here. Now this is where YAML really shines. So you can actually define multiple lines if you use the bar, and those lines will be independent, and all of this extra white space in front will be cut off, so that you can define multi-line. This is where it just destroys JSON, because you can have lines with blank lines in them. As long as the indentation lines up, you're good to go. And that's why you'll see people doing little bits of poetry, or they're making a database of quotes or something like that. YAML is a much, much better format for all that. So much so that it was really big. 2.8 in Pandas came out with this thing called partials, and it associates partials with YAML data. And it's gotten so good that you can take your flat text YAML data and render what essentially are database views of all of that data. It's just so powerful, and none of the other static site generators can even touch that. You can really tell that the academics that are involved in making Pandas, mostly academics, are really into taking structured data and rendering it, and that is their primary purpose above everything else, beyond spitting out a blog or grabbing some GraphQL, like Gatsby or Hugo or any of the other things do. This is another reason that I am really solidly in the Pandas camp, because it fundamentally continues to support YAML more and more and more, which promotes the sustainable capturing of knowledge in flat files that are independent of any particular database, and that frankly don't need to be in a database, because they can always be loaded into a database and the data doesn't change a lot. So we're talking about data about schedules and metadata and stuff like that. JSON is interpreted anyway. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that, but on my other one, you see here, I actually have integrated. Sometimes it makes more sense for me to have JSON data. So this one here, you see this? So these curlies are JSON. Okay. Occasionally you'll see, and this is alacrity, but occasionally it makes sense to use JSON syntax. So this is JSON syntax here. So I don't necessarily want to make another indentation or something like that. So you can actually, you can mix the two, which is very nice. That you'll query that. There are databases that will load YAML. There's a lot of them. The problem with YAML, I'm going to tell you straight up, the biggest problem with YAML is that people reach for YAML because they want to be able to edit the stuff with their hands, or have other people maintain the stuff. And then they also want a program to be able to generate the YAML. And as soon as you start doing that, you're in really dangerous territory, because almost none of the tools that render YAML maintain things like order, indentation, hashtag, comments, and all that stuff. All of this wonderful flexibility in the language for expression and for including of comments and everything absolutely sucks to maintain by a program, because the program cannot recreate it. And if you've ever dealt with configuration files in the past, you know what I'm talking about. So if you want to be able to edit, a properties file in Etsy someplace, you know that you can't just rewrite the thing, that you have to try to just change that one line and not mess with the comments that are all around it. And so it gets the programming involved to write YAML properly after the data structure has changed is very, very hard. And it's not recommended. I haven't found a good one that does it at all. So note to everybody out there, a warning to you, be sure that no program is ever going to write your YAML data. It will just, at that point, XML is better for that. JSON is better for that. Now, if you want to cheat, and we talked about this on the stream the other day, if you want to cheat, because you said Alacrity file, right? So this Alacrity file is YAML, but it's because links to the mom. The other day, somebody wanted to be able to create a configurator for the Alacrity project, and that's a good valid goal to have. And the Alacrity project doesn't say the configuration files must be YAML format. They don't care. So you could conceivably write a tool that sets up your Alacrity configuration and writes the whole thing as JSON and even names it .yml at the end. Now, I actually think somebody should open a ticket for the Alacrity project so that it will detect a file that has alacrity.json as well as alacrity.yaml, because they are so compatible. But so if somebody actually wants to write a configurator tool, it's important that you know that if you need to someday write a program that does it, and you get around to writing it, you can maintain your data as YAML up until that point. And then when it's ready to, when you have the program done and tested, you can say, fine, anywhere that there was a YAML file before can now be JSON. And you don't, all your tools should just keep working, because why? Because JSON is YAML. And that is why the two are the same. Vera and others are complaining about that compatibility, but that is why it exists. YAML was designed for human maintainability and for the flexibility to allow the fact that if you have a human maintained process that's now automated, you can swap JSON in place of that other process and not fix anything. It will just work. That's the whole point of all of that. So YAML bench, yep, that might be fun. Gives you at least a structure of the YAML. I might have to try that. That's a good recommendation. Thank you for that. So yeah, anyway, there's lots of places online, by the way, where you can play around with YAML. Many online resources for playing around with YAML that are not command line stuff. I just don't have a lot of command line tools to do this. But anyway, okay, let's keep going. So you have that again, more scalars here. And then we have, so here's, I told you, here's our symbolic link sort of thing. And this is important. So this says up here, I'm going to make a reference to this structure. So that means that bill2, actually what this does is it duplicates the mapping. It's an additional mapping, they call it. They don't even call these scalars, they call these mappings. But this is, so bill2 and ID00 refer to exactly the same data. It refers to this data structure of key value pairs that goes all the way down until the next one starts. And that way it can be used, dereferenced, if you will, with the star and the ampersand syntax is straight up from C. If you know about pointers, that's where that comes from. Same for Go. And most languages that have this idea of like, I want to take a pointer to a thing and then reference to that thing later on, dereference it later on. So this every time you see the star here, it means expand this thing as if all of that code, all of that structure had been typed right here. And this is really, really powerful. If you, in particular, so a database, let me give you a practical example. I don't have a lot of time, but I've actually been putting together a tasks database, which is associated with the skills such as like create a file using touch, or do an infinite loop with while. And my tasks database is becoming, and then I also want to have like a set of credentials that cover all those other tasks. Well, what I can do instead of creating a really massive database is I can actually have another file that is sort of an aggregate of all of the other stuff from the task lists, and it can refer to all the tasks by IDs. So in my case, the IDs are the names, but I can just make the test the IDs, and then I don't have to write at that in the credential list of all the things you should know. I don't have to put like what is the URL. I don't have to repeat myself and put all of the data for that particular tasks. So how is this syntax for cross-reference files? Well, that is the holy grail, and that's what this is right here. So this syntax at the very top, which to tell you the truth, I'm only dabbling that myself recently. This actually not only refers to where that file is, but it's very strongly specified about referring to files that are referenced from the internet. So if you had files, the idea of this is it's not unlike the XML, but I have to pause there because it's not as draconian as XML either. XML, every single different XML file has to have a schema defined that's over here in a place or something. But you can actually associate references to other files and to other to websites and stuff. And I don't know of any practical application of that, but that's what this is. So these are tags. These exclamation point things are tags. And I'm just exploring the use of tags myself. As a beginner, you don't need to get into the weeds on all of that. The main thing, most of it won't be supported by most of your YAML parsers out there in the first place. How does it include MIME types of transfer information? The fact of the matter too is that this actually is designed after the MIME type system, which is kind of interesting. I don't know. I don't know how it does MIME type transport. I have to go look. It would be fun to figure that out. But so here is our list. So we had somewhere we just have key value pairs. We don't have any lists yet. Let me show you a list here. So lists are identified by single dashes. And then this is a, you can either do them with the square brackets like JavaScript or like JSON, but then you can also have key value pairs like this. And each dash does that. Now, this is interesting that they indented this much. You don't actually have to indent this at all. And if you look at my database, I don't. I keep my product here and I have the dash here, and then the rest of the indentation just takes this shape up here. As long as the white space matches up, you're good. I do regularly do this though. I just like it better because the whole point is readability. So I often will use my dashes, my colons, the way they have to kind of like, call off, or I don't know, just to separate how things look. I do think that sort of artistically expressing yourself and cleanly in a YAML file is totally okay. You heard me rail against that yesterday about doing that in Markdown and just using one way to do, horizontal rules. Just use 4 dashes, for example. But in this case, I think that for maximum readability, I would just let everything go and do whatever you have to. So down here, let's keep going so I can show you some more examples. So here we have, tax number, total comments. So these comments is important you understand that by default, if you start a new line for a scalar, it will automatically join the lines. So this will automatically join and become one single long continuous line. And that includes if you put like a blank line in between. If you want more precise control of that, you can use another operator that I'll show in a second. And so, but this is an example of a log file. So this is not as common, but using YAML on a log file is kind of stupid if you ask me. That log files we're talking about parsability. We're not talking about human maintenance, right? So at that point, I think this is a bad example. I think this would be JSON all the way, but it does show that you can separate records by using the triple dash. Let me show you a practical example of that really quick before we get too deep in the woods. So Pandoc Markdown supports by default the use of what they call Frontmatter, and this is inherited from Jekyll, which people could argue easily that it was the very first static site generator, and so that had YAML at the top. And the Frontmatter convention has always been 3 dashes and 3 dashes. Now Pandoc also supports the official YAML header, which is to have 3 dots. This is actually, if I put 3 dots here, this is a legal YAML file. The entire thing is a legal YAML file. If I do it like this, it is also a legal YAML file, but the problem is is that this actually delimits the beginning of another document. So one of the great things I like about Pandoc is that you can actually do proper YAML and not this Frontmatter stuff that Jekyll did. Problem with that is that I don't think that is recognized by GitHub and GitLab. It doesn't see the 3 dots because they decided to make it 3 dashes. So I continue to use the Frontmatter model from Jekyll, which is supported on GitLab and GitHub and every place else on the planet pretty much. But the approach is that you mix your structured data in with your unstructured data, your like write-up. Now, I have mixed feelings on this. I sometimes feel like metadata has no business being in actual content. I've since given in on that idea, and I am actually totally okay by mixing my metadata. I have taken a personal domain model approach by including all of my insignificant sort of stylistic rendering kind of properties with a TPL extension, and then all the stuff that's like significant metadata about my thing, and that could be like completely complicated. Like one of them, I don't have it around here, but it has like a task list. I use the convention of an initial capital, which complies with how exports are done in Golang. So this is called. So I could do anything here though. I mean, I could say tags. So this is a very valid one. So I could say tags. I could say Linux, whatever, comma, something else. And I wonder if that'll actually build. Because those are, there is some of it kind of bothers me because it's like, okay, so when you start making stuff like JSON, right? It's like, well, if it's JSON, it should have quotes around it, right? But it's fine without them. So until you need to put a comma in something. So if I tend to be a little bit pedantic about that when I'm going to mix it. Another way to do the tags that's a lot easier though is just this. So you just do Linux dash whatever and tech, learning, and then those all becomes an array when it gets parsed. Those also don't have to be indented. I can have them be here. So that's the thing. But indentation looks good. So the point being is that YAML is a very simple sort of metadata documentation tool that frequently gets combined with actual documentation to produce things like this, and is the basis of the README world exchange, where we extract all the data in addition to headers and stuff and put that in a meta.json file, deliberately not YAML, so that it can be really quickly parsed from anybody, kind of like an RSS feed, who wants to go see what's on my site. And if you want to know more about that, we'll talk about that on Sunday or something when I'm working on that. But I want to give you a practical example of metadata using YAML. So let's keep going. We got about 10 more minutes. So here we have again an example of somebody putting 2 things on one thing. This is actual code. So it's important you realize that. Here's another one. This one has something to do with indentation, I have a feeling, but I don't remember. I'm going to have to go look at the examples again. And the markup text is in markup text, like it is used second form. We use spaces at the end if you want line breaks. Are those trailing spaces preserved in YAML? Yes and no. So as long as the indentation is the same, you can have spaces. And in Pandoc, you can actually, any text scalar is assumed to be Markdown. So it will automatically do Markdown conversion, which is really cool. I can't tell you how cool that is. That means that you can use YAML, and your scalars will actually kind of have emphasis and all the other stuff that you would put in a normal Markdown file. This is why I just overwhelmingly think Pandoc is so amazing, because you can get your Markdown rendering and your YAML data structure combined. In fact, a lot of people will start to just use YAML to document, to create their web pages, and then just have templates that are, they move more and more towards templates the more structured their entire site gets. As I've started to be experiencing with my task lists and stuff. Let's see, did you name the canonical libraries for use of the YAML specific language? Yes, they're on the main page. That's like the first thing that they have on the page at the top. So if you go to the top, they have all of that. It's like an entire list of they have the here it is right here, the reference parser. And then they have this reference parser is actually, you can go here and test it. It's kind of hard to read because it's like, whatever, black, whatever. But you can go here and do whatever. You can have it rendered as HTML or whatever. And but the other languages are here, including Rust and Go and Haskell, everything. They're all there, NIM even. So yeah, lots. This has been around for a very, very long time. So it has really wide adoption and a lot of parsers out there for it. What else we got to look? So here we go. YAML stream. Oh yeah, you can convert it into YAML streams. I mean, that's more JSON data. Do you have any tips on aligning text working with tables? Yes, Pandoc. And we're running out of time here, but I'll answer that question today. But I actually realized that I want to take you into a Pandoc Markdown deep dive. That will be tomorrow. Okay, so tomorrow I want to do two things if I can fit them in. One of them is I want to show you all the awesome things from Pandoc Markdown that I regularly use that are not basic Markdown. And I did basic Markdown on the first day. It's so important that you master basic Markdown and understand the implications for compatibility across the board. And then once you're okay signing off on a little bit more complexity in your Markdown at the cost of rendering, for example, a table that I have in Pandoc will not render because tables are not a part of Common Mark for lots of reasons we'll talk about tomorrow. Or on GitHub or GitLab. But there are so many advantages to using Pandoc that I welcome the differences. I tried to use Pandoc to turn wikis into PDF a few years ago, and it was quite a mess, as far as I can remember. To turn a wiki into a PDF, the main problem there is that you're actually trying to convert a horrible knowledge source structure. Any of the wiki text formats out there are disastrously bad, if you ask me. And that's why I am such an advocate for basic Markdown and Pandoc Markdown and Common Mark for knowledge source, because of the lack of complexity and unnecessary complication that wiki and yet another language from a scientist or an engineer. Knowledge is, I made a big case for this yesterday, and I don't want to, or Monday, it was yesterday, but I made a big case for why knowledge needs to be preserved in the simplest possible format and this is why HTML was a massive failure. Because HTML was a tool that required a tool from the beginning to create it. You can say you're going to write HTML with a text editor all you want. That was never a practical reality, and that's why Markdown became a thing. Wiki text, you can say that it's easy for people to learn and write all you want. It's not true. Markdown is basic Markdown is already, in fact, somebody brought that up yesterday. How can I get these Microsoft Word docs people to ever even consider writing in Markdown? Well, you don't have a prayer if you're going to tell them that they have to write Wikimedia text or that they have to write, so you might be able to get them to do basic Markdown, or you might be able to get them to structure their Microsoft Word document so that it can be exported to Markdown, and then you can use it, sustainably in another way. Wikis, one of the greatest disasters about wikis, beyond the fact that it's collaborative writing that never has a consistent voice or, relevance, is that it fundamentally blocks a large swath of the population from participating because they can't learn wiki text. And that's why HTML was a bad idea. HTML was a bad idea because it was just way too big, and it required them, we'll make you a tool for that. And then what happens? Yeah, Mark Andreessen makes his own tool, adds blink tags, adds whatever you want, forks it, makes Netscape, becomes a millionaire, becomes one of the shittiest, ever, like, venture capitalists in history. That's what happens when you make a tool that requires science to use it. You want to remove as many barriers to entry when it comes to knowledge management and knowledge creation, and that is exactly what basic Markdown is. Now, having known that, if you want to go up a notch and you say, I'm a mathematician and I want to be able to write math equations, well, then yeah, you can now write in Markdown also, which is not supported in most wiki texts. You can write it and build on it. So I'm kind of repeating my case I made yesterday, but that's where I'm coming from on that. Not just HTML fun to be like exclamation. Yeah. And watching Aaron's documentary yesterday helped me understand it all much better. Thanks for that. Aaron's documentary, if you haven't watched it, and by the way, we're wrapping up here, coming close to the end. I talked at the beginning about how we're restarting the beginner boost, and tomorrow we'll continue to talk about Pandoc. There is really no structure to the boost per se until I re-release a new schedule. So we'll just continue to learn topics as we go. So don't worry about that. They will all show up on the boost at some point. And I'm going to try my hardest to fit the boost into a month or two of Mondays and Tuesdays. More on that. But the fundamental thing with a reminder to Aaron is the beginner boost, the Linux terminal master, the knowledge matter. I don't even know what I'm going to call it. But on the first day of every boost, I'm going to spend a good hour dedicated to the memory of Aaron Schwartz, because Aaron was so completely and totally on point with every single thing that I want to convey about not only technology, but why to use the technology and how to become relevant and maintain your relevance in the world. Aaron is a shining example of that. Unfortunately, his life was snuffed out by the government way too early. But my boosts, my Linux terminal beginner boosts, every one of them is going to be dedicated to Aaron's memory, because if you can basically become an Aaron, you've succeeded. He lived on the command line. He even though he used the Mac, he loved to write. He loved to read. He taught himself from a very early age. He used all his time. He had no patience for insignificant people who did. He even left Reddit because it got Baba Condé Nast, and it was a big party. And he was like, we're not doing anything important. Moved back to Boston and started doing important things again with his life. And so I really just want to echo how important it is for you to understand what it is he did, how come it didn't go, and the priorities that he had, and why he had those priorities, because his priorities were fundamentally about making the world a better place in the best way possible through knowledge exchange and education. And, he founded Reddit and all those other things. Okay. And YAML is a big part of that, where you can watch about Aaron. I will send you a link to Aaron's, we actually started watching it at the beginning of the stream today. Let me just close this one here. And this one, we'll go ahead and close this one. So if you do a search on the YouTube for Aaron Schwartz, the internet's own boy, but there's actually a line in the very first thing. It says that he learned from a very early age how to learn. And that is, of course, the primary goal of all this. All the technology that we're learning, ultimately, it's just a bunch of tools and services. What you're really learning to do is to maintain your learning and to produce something of relevance for the world. That's the most important thing to take away. All the rest, all the terminal mastery, all the querying, all the the debate about what's the best Linux distro, it's all relevant only in the sense that it's propelling you toward applying the use of these tools towards something bigger than yourself. And that means something akin to what Aaron's mission in life was to share knowledge with everyone. And that is really the fundamental mission of this boost, and frankly my life at this point. So I really want people to take that away. And if you don't buy into that, you might not agree with a lot of my decisions. So, because you might think, well, why do we need to do that? I just want to make games, dude. Do I have to feel bad about making? No. But there are other things going on here. So hopefully we can deal with a little bit of that. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. Turn on the beginning again, just since some of you weren't here. We'll just watch a little bit of it for a few minutes as we back up. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. Just kind of sending us out with a little bit of this movie. The overview really gives a better. It's all open source, so I'm not violating any laws here. Twitch, if you're watching. If you ask Lisp programmers, they probably disagree with any other syntax that records. Lisp programmers are fine. Yeah. All he did was make knowledge public that was already legally public. And he kind of got in the gray area on some of it and woke up the feds.
A co-founder of the social news and entertainment website Reddit has been found dead.
Social news and entertainment website.
He certainly was a prodigy, although he never kind of thought of himself like that.
That's Lawrence listening.
Totally unexcited about.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Starting businesses and making money.
There's a profound sense of loss tonight in Highland Park, Aaron Swartz's hometown, as loved ones say goodbye to one of the internet's brightest.
I just watched the beginning out. We'll go out with you on this. Tomorrow's Pandoc Day, though. We're going to go deep into Pandoc Markdown specifically. And that includes a conversation about how to do tables.
They wanted to make an example out of him, okay?
Okay, so... And then if we have time, we're going to do Pandoc template syntax, which is super simple.
He was potentially facing 35 years in prison and a $1 million fine.
Raising questions of prosecutorial zeal and I would say even misconduct. Have you looked into that particular matter and reached any conclusions?
Do you have any example online to read about the use of YAML with Markdown via templates? Pandoc Markdown. We're going to talk about it tomorrow, but...
People had told me were just the natural way things were, the way things always would be. They weren't natural at all. They were things that could be changed, and they were things that, more importantly, were wrong and should change. And once I realized that, there was really kind of no going back.
Yep.
Welcome to story reading time.
Welcome to story reading
The
time.
name of the book is Paddington at the Fair.
Well, he was born in Highland Park and grew up here. Aaron came from a family of 3 brothers, all extraordinarily
Crazy
talented.
kids.
So we were all,
listen to this.
not the best behaved children, and 3 boys running around all the time causing trouble.
Here it is.
But I've come to the realization Aaron learned how to learn at a very young age.
Yep.
Who's there? Aaron. Aaron, funny man.
He knew what he wanted, and he
Such a
always
dork.
wanted to do it. He always accomplished what he wanted. His curiosity was endless.
Here's a little picture of what the planets are. And each planet has a symbol. Mercury symbol, Venus symbol, Earth symbol, Mars symbol, Jupiter symbol.
One day he said to Susan, "What's this free family entertainment in downtown Highland Park?"
Free family entertainment downtown Highland Park.
He was 3 at the time, and she said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Look, it says here on the refrigerator, free family entertainment in downtown Highland Park." And so she was floored and astonished that he could read.
It's called My Family Seder. The
Reading.
Seder night is different from all other nights.
I remember once we were at the University of Chicago Library. I pulled a book off the shelf that was from like 1900 and showed him and said, this is really just an extraordinary place.
We all were curious children, but Aaron really liked learning and really liked teaching.
And so they were going to learn the ABCs backwards. Z-Y-X-W-V-U-T.
I remember he came home from his first algebra class, and he was like, "Noah, let me teach you algebra." And I'm like, "What is algebra?" And he was always like that.
Now you press the click button. There, now it's got that. Now it's in pink.
When he
Now
was
it's a
about
pink.
2 or 3 years old and Bob introduced him to computers,
Can
and
barely
he just
move the
took
mouse.
off like crazy on them.
Go fast it was to ABC.
We all had computers, but Aaron really took to them.
Oh, I'm so
really
glad
took
I
to
got
the
a computer
internet.
in my kids' hands early.
Working at the computer? Mommy, why is nothing working?
He started programming from a really young age.
Anyway.
I remember the first program that
So if you want something to do and you're bored, go watch this documentary and then watch it again. And try not to be sad. It has a horrible ending. I'm just going to tell you right now. But we can take that and we can make something good of it. So that's life goals, people. Life goals. Make more errands in the world. Build an army of errands. We need an army of errands. That's what we need. Maybe we can have all these cool documentaries. I already have that IMFlex. I just haven't made it public yet. It's called /films. And one of them is Tron. And a bunch of fun things. But yeah, there's two things I'm doing for you people as best I can. Trying to keep you motivated, keep you on track, and to document as much as I can about the existence of this stuff. I think part of the problem we have right now is there's a lot of sensationalism and there's a lot of look at me kind of knowledge out there. And there's not that much high quality knowledge that's been curated and considered and free, seeks to send you looking further rather than to trap you so that their SEO ranks go up. I've talked about that a lot already, but this is a big subject for this week and frankly for the entire boost. I'm going to go do my yoga. I know that's like the most cliche thing to say. I actually do love yoga. I'm going to go do that right now, and I'm going to say goodbye to you guys. Do you have anybody that we could raid? I'd love spreading the wealth. Anybody else? I don't like the top only shows the top. Lana's there. Adam's there. We could go visit Adam. T. Sodding is there. He's good. There are a lot of good people to raid. Autodidacts, using that fancy term. I think I'm going to go ahead and visit Mr. Sodding today. Skip the raid and maybe watch the documentary. I actually kind of want to sit here and watch it myself. Yeah. So go ahead and pull it up and watch that. And I think I'm probably just going to close off for today without a raid. No offense to anybody. If you guys know small people that have similar goals. And I'm going to go ahead and just do a Twitch stop then. It's been really great having you. And again, tomorrow we're going to deep dive into Pandoc Markdown as opposed to just basic Markdown. If you want to be ready for tomorrow, make sure you go to rdbx.gg/md and click on basic and create 1 or 2 documents in basic Markdown. Maybe even add some YAML to the top of them. You cannot add Json, but Json is YAML, so you can go ahead and do that. And then we'll see you tomorrow. All right, bye.